Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are enjoying the kickoff of the weekend. We are here on August 8th, 2025, Lionsgate, woo! Doing live astrology readings. So if this is the first time that you guys are viewing my live show, give me a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed, and drop me a hello in the comments, or actually I should say in the chat, because we're live on Friday. So if you guys are watching this on Saturday or Sunday, I'm no longer live. Please don't send any donations for a reading, otherwise you'll get refunded. We're here every Friday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We alternate between tarot and astrology. And this week, we're talking all things full moon in Aquarius. So I'm excited to answer your guys' questions. Whether you want to know what this full moon means in your natal chart, timing questions, or questions about synastry, or timing stuff revolving around relationships. We've got a whole colorful mix of things that are kind of going on, so there's a good kind of collective amount of questions that are going to show us a lot of variety this evening. And in those of you guys who are not aware, we have got some new stuff on the channel. So we totally switched up and changed up our memberships. And a lot of that is because we had to. I wanted to include my new level 3 for my memberships on YouTube, which is basically going to be the VIP, club for daily horoscopes. So you will get access to this in that level where you're going to see in my community tab every day your sun, moon, or rising horoscope. So there's all 12 signs there to give you guys insight. Because we added that, we actually had to bump what was level 3 for the live members to get readings to level 4. So last month was like a little chaotic. I know we had a lot of people that obviously got kicked. So if you're coming back to my channel and you're like, where's my level 3? You have to rejoin as a level 4 if you want to get your reading once a month. You support the channel. You will also get the daily horoscope club, and you're going to get your shout outs. So you get all the other kind of perks that come with the lower levels. And we're going to take our level 4 people first. They are the VIPs. So we've got 4 people who are actually in that group. 2 of you guys joined today. So Deanna and Coco, welcome back. Welcome to level 4. But if there are any other level 4 people, we've got Apple, and we've also got, I think it says Appy Apple and Rosie on YouTube. So if you guys pop in, give me a shout. I'd love to give you your reading. We will be taking those people first. And we've also got a whole slew of other people. So if you guys want to get a reading, you got to scan this QR code right here. By scanning that QR code, it's going to take you to my PayPal. Now, this is very important because if you haven't seen my show before, I actually pull up your natal chart and the transits in real time. I'm going to be looking at your chart and giving you some answers. So I need to know in the memo box, please, please, please put your time, date, and location of birth. Spell out the month, put the AM and the PM, and also put your question for me. I'm going to be answering any one question. So you guys ask me one topic: relationships, money, career, health stuff, whatever you want. I'll be answering that question and kind of giving you my 2 cents. Or you can just ask about this full moon. That's going to be hitting tomorrow in Aquarius. Okay? So other than that, we'll go ahead and get started. Please share the live stream out. Let other people know that we're here. If you guys are giving me a thumbs up or sharing it, other people are going to see that we're here. We're going to help the channel grow. We are inching closer and closer to 50,000 subscribers. We're doing all kinds of new stuff. We've got a new separate 12 signs for your horoscopes now, so they're like more digestible, so you can listen to just your sun, moon, or rising. We also have tarot scopes out, so I'm kind of including more tarot into the channel. Those came out for August, so you guys should check those out too if you want more kind of tarot predictions. It's cool to choose your own reading, choose your own deck, and I think it's definitely different than some of the other stuff that's out there, so I hope you guys like it. And if you guys want to get a reading, you have to make a donation by scanning the QR code. We are charging $55 US for one question, or $75 if you have synastry questions about you and another person. So this is who I have. Deanna and Coco are first up on the list. We've got Gemma, we've got Hiru, Mary, Marissa, and Anthony. You guys are all in the queue right now for your reading. At some point, you'll hear me call last call. That's just me letting you know that we are wrapping up the readings for the evening. So if you guys get your donation in before last call, then you'll be able to get your reading. And sometimes this takes a little bit longer, so I appreciate your guys' patience. We're going to be doing the readings in the order that we receive them. All right. So let's get going with Deanna first, and then Coco, you're on deck. Welcome back, ladies. Let's see what Deanna has to say. She says, I am back. I'm cashing in. I will try to stay up in Ireland. Retreat was successful. I like it. Here's the dilemma. I think I want to get engaged, and the Irishman is unsure about that as a next step. My chart is so lit up just when I think I have it all together. Chaos. Any help is appreciated. All right. Well, hopefully I can give you some insight. Certainly, I would say as a Leo rising, the last couple of weeks have been rather colorful, huh? It's also like reminiscent of like the Mars retrograde. So Mars was kind of the beginning of the year. It was dealing more with your passion, your direction, your home and your living situation, as well as traveling. And it went retrograde into your 12th house, right? So obviously I know, because I'm familiar with your situation, you had an extended stay, you went back, you visited a foreign land, but that opposition to Pluto was bringing up a lot of not only changes in your work and your schedule, obviously Placidus 6th and 12th house, but a lot of back and forth revolving around who am I in comparison to another person. So it was already kind of previewing or kind of setting up what would be eventually the July and August Mercury retrograde, which is a lot of conversations, mental stuff back and forth revolving around what? Well, what do I value? What do I want, right? Resources, and also what your goals are with other people, you know, the kind of collaborations and the retreats that you're doing. But the opposition to Pluto is whether or not you're voicing and communicating and feeling confident about what you're ready for, what your goals are in relationships. And Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius, so it can represent that there is this sense of him kind of turning within and kind of saying to himself, am I ready for this change? Obviously, Pluto represents your home, but your 4th house is his 10th house. So it's about him reassessing this big status change for him and what that means coming together with another person. The retrograde in your 1st house represents a retrograde in his 7th. So even if he's not, you know, a Aquarius rising, it will manifest as a lot of kind of back and forth, figuring out where relationships are going. So my thought is that, you know, perhaps maybe Saturn retrograde is actually going to be helpful, because we're going to see Saturn dip back into Pisces, as will Neptune, over like the next month or two. And it will be coming into some trines with Jupiter. Well, Saturn rules relationships. 8th house is intimacy, money, vulnerability, and kind of uniting. Jupiter obviously is still in your 11th house, so it can be about, you know, meeting new clients, connecting with new people, but it can be about strengthening a relationship in a foreign land. Now, Uranus also rules your 7th house, so I'm looking at a couple of different things here. One is Uranus is now in Gemini, and it's actually trining Mars, where there can be like kind of forging new relationships, having conversations about changes in relationships and money. It's also coming into a trine with Pluto. So we've got this grand air trine that's going on currently. It's going to be in the skies probably the next couple days, which can really light up communication and talking about the future of what relationships look like. So that's the positive. The challenge, I think, is the fact that, you know, you're still in Mercury retrograde. You're trying to figure out how to find the right words. Obviously, it's nighttime, my time, so it's going to be probably very early, kind of in the morning hours where you are right now. And that full moon is coming in hot in your 7th house. So it's really kind of highlighting, okay, who am I in comparison to who are we together? Positives, once again, is that you are going to see not only a grand air trine between Mars, kind of moon, and Pluto, but the moon's going into your 7th house, where it's going to be shining a light on relationship dynamics and big decisions. And it's trining your North Node in Libra. That's about feeling solid. Pluto in Libra, which is about powerful conversations. Moon in Libra, which is going to be basically getting insights into timing and planning. So I like the full moon in that sense for you. I just think it's a little challenging right now because you're still feeling the Mercury-Pluto opposition. I also think it's a little challenging because this full moon squares Uranus in your 4th house, which means relationship dynamics are coming up, putting pressure on dramatic changes and kind of upheavals in your home and your living situation, and dramatic changes to what's going to be happening with your status with your partner. So let like the next couple of days really show you where things are going, right? Obviously Aquarius is unconventional, unusual, different. You're going to want to look at your partner's chart and you're going to see what's going on with his 7th house and what's going on with his 7th house lord. Are there squares? Are there conjunctions? Are there trines? And you can look also at your composite chart to see what's going on. The second thing that I think about is that there is going to be a sense of you feeling a little bit more direct, and perhaps that's when Mercury comes into conjunction with Mars around the 18th, 19th, 20th of August, where then you're going to feel like, okay, now I'm ready to kind of say what's on my mind. And then you will have a new moon directly on your Saturn, and that's going to be on August 23rd, 2025. The first of two new moons in Virgo. So the one after that will be an eclipse that'll be in September. But something I've been thinking about in regards to these new moons is that the first one is at 0 degrees, which means we have to figure out how to initiate or start something. I guess in the case of Virgo, it's planning, it's organizing, it's timing, it's scheduling. And Saturn obviously is retrograde in your chart, so it's going to represent you feeling like you need to kind of get some kind of answer, or it's going to be a 6-month process as you build into what will be the eclipses in Virgo next year in the spring in regards to relationship commitment. So the first house is I'm committing to myself, Saturn, the relationship to myself. And obviously this is squaring Uranus in Gemini. Well, he's a Gemini, right? Or he's got some kind of placement in Gemini from what I remember. So it's basically going, this is what I want, boom. It's squaring Uranus in the 4th, which means you're putting pressure on obviously career changes, relationship changes, but in particular his home. So it's gonna be like, well, if I come here, where are we living? What does that look like? Like, how are we talking about our living situation? And it's the same square, you know, just to a different Uranus placement that you actually will see with the full moon in Aquarius tomorrow. When could there be a significant turning point in a relationship? You know, I will look at your chart and give you the timing of what it looks like for you, but in order to make really solid predictions, you want to look at your chart and the transits involving the 7th house. You want to look at your partner's transits in the 7th house. You want to look at the composite chart, and then you want to see what's going on with the 7th house. But off the top of my head, I think about that in February of 2026, we will be starting what's going to be a new series of eclipses. So we are going to see the very first eclipse that will be coming in. That's going to be taking place in Aquarius. So as a Leo rising, you know, the solar eclipse is boom, action, new seeds, things that are being planted in regards to relationships. So this can be actually kind of foreshadowing in the beginning of February of next year. Oh, am I taking the next step in a relationship? Now, this is colorful for a number of reasons. I think one is solar eclipses are like, we don't act, we just think. And the positive is that it's planting a new seed. Venus is the ruler. Venus is going to be conjunct the North Node. So it looks like about a spiritual, emotional, or financial commitment, a merger in that regard, and a transformation. And we also see that there is a direct connection to Uranus. And Uranus, this eclipse is actually going to square your natal Uranus. It's a wide square, but it's there. And it's also going to square transit Uranus. Okay, so like there's a lot that's going to change basically February of next year. Mars is there at a 19. So it's kind of like we need to take action now in regards to relationships. All of that's trining your planets in Libra. And obviously it's kind of in opposition to your Saturn. So it's where you're releasing and letting go of feeling like you have to do life on your own. And you're kind of opening up to taking action in relationships, future kind of relationship planning Aquarius. So I would say probably maybe when Mars hits that 28 degrees, right around the end of February, that could actually represent being like, okay, we're moving forward. The relationship status changes, and also there's changes with home. So February is like the month. Now that's a solar eclipse. So it's also laying the groundwork for what? 6 months later, then you're going to have, you know, that full moon. So I would speculate between February of 26 and probably about August, when you're starting to have then the Leo eclipses on your ascendant with Jupiter, you're getting ready to merge with another person and maybe relocate and not be doing so much back and forth, just looking at your chart. And also next year, you'll see Saturn's actually going to start coming into a trine with your ascendant. It's going to be trining your Mars, so it could give you stability living in a foreign land. And Saturn and Jupiter will trine once Jupiter gets into Leo. So perhaps maybe there's much more of a serious commitment around the new year, and it's the setup for you actually getting ready to kind of come into this new life change where you're doing life with another person in August of 2026, when you're having the eclipses on your ascendant, and then there's a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces in your 7th that's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter's on your ascendant. So, you know, just based off of your chart, definitely go and look at his chart. Look at what's going on, like I said, with his 7th house lord. Go and look at what's going on with transits in his 7th house. And if you want, I would say maybe come back at some point because you're a member, and like pay the difference to get like a synastry reading. And I can look at both of your charts together and do the composite chart and go, oh, this is when it should be happening, or this is when it will be happening. I guess one other way that I could look at this is also going to be, there is like a really strong stellium of planets that are going to be in Capricorn at the end of this year. And so I don't know if you're planning on being with him over the holidays or what, but I've had my eye on this stellium, and it looks like Mars, Venus, the Sun, and Juno are all going to be sitting on your Sun right around your birthday, which obviously could mean that there is some kind of significant romantic relationship developments. There can be much more serious commitment. And Venus and Mars are actually going to cazimi right on your Sun. So to me, that's like you going, all right, my goal is come the new year, I have work prepared, I have work planned, I have stuff situated, I'm scheduling that out, I'm planning on, you know, where I'm going to be and what moves that I'm making. And then the next step will be, oh, okay, well, obviously, you know, now we're talking about much more serious commitment. I would think February of next year, right? I would want to spend Christmas and New Year's with my boo if I knew I was having a Venus and a Juno return and a solar return at the same time. To have all of those returns so close together, it's not unusual. I think the Juno cycle is like 9 years. But I would want to look at that solar return chart, because that's very obvious that that's going to be a very significant year for relationships, for love, for, you know, values, for finances, all of that stuff. So yeah, look forward to the North Node dropping into your 7th house and the eclipses there. Partners act a little unconventional and a little bit harder to kind of like wrangle. But that's the life, I think, of being like a Leo rising. Maybe go and look at his natal Venus placement, because that's going to show you how he is in like love and relationships and like what's going on with his Venus. But certainly like Saturn aspects with the 7th house lord, North Node in the 7th house, eclipses in the 7th house. Those can kind of be bringing up some of the themes in regards to relationship commitment, right? It'll be a first house year next year, so that's good too. I mean, once you get into your birthday and the Sun is not only your ruling planet as a Leo rising, but you're also going to be then looking at, you know, these transits happening over your Sun, right? And then you're going to have eclipses in your first house, and then you're going to have Jupiter in your first house. Like, there is some pretty dramatic change, and I don't just think it's going to be a haircut. I think it's definitely going to be more along the lines of like where you're traveling to and where you're living, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you. What's up, Kirsten? I will add you to my list, girl. What's going on? Nice to see you. Okay. Super chat. Let's talk to Coco. What's up, Coco? There we go. She's a Pisces rising, Sun in Sag, Moon in Capricorn. You're welcome. Enjoy your trip. All right, let's see what Coco has to say. What's up, Enchanted? Nice to see you. All right, so Coco says, happy Lionsgate portal and full moon in Aquarius, checking in on my monthly general look at love and money. Lawyer still trying to wrangle my ex-employer, and had a lovely day trip with my man friend at the end of July, but now he's been busy/quiet. He's a Scorpio rising. I would assume just in the realm of the Scorpio rising, just knowing that Mars has gone into Libra, which is their 12th house, and Saturn and Neptune are in their 6th. My God, a lot of Scorpio risings are so moody right now. Rightfully so. I remember that transit. A lot of it's just, what is Libra, right? Relationships. And it's in the 12th house, which means relationships kind of feel like, okay, it's something they want to deal with that night, or that they kind of need some space, or Mars ruling their 6th house where Saturn and Neptune is, that they're finding it really difficult to navigate balancing their workload, their routine, and also what's going on with relationships. And some Scorpio risings, knock on wood, are also feeling so burnt out to the point where it's like all they can do is just work and sleep, okay, in his defense. Some of them are also getting sick. So you factor that in with the Mercury retrograde in his 10th, where there is definitely a lot that's kind of changing at work. And anytime you have planets in Leo, it's squaring their ascendant. So it's kind of like their time to show up and be in the spotlight. And it's also squaring their descendant. So it's also going to put some pressure in relationships. So Leo season is not the easiest for Scorpios right now. I think that when I'm looking at relationships for you, I'm looking at what's going on in your 7th house. And girl, there is a lot of stuff happening. So, you know, by Placidus standards, Mars is still chugging along through your 7th house. And that makes you want to take action or be in relationships with others or connected to other people. But it is actually in opposition to Saturn and Neptune in your 1st. So, you know, I'm going to talk to you like you're an Aries rising. I know you're a Pisces rising, but this is very similar to the Aries rising horoscope. Okay, I want to take action with partners. Where are they? They're kind of feeling a little indecisive or back and forth, you know, which is making me feel like, hi, do you see me over here? You know, Saturn and Neptune in your 1st house is like feeling like, why did I get ghosted? What's going on? Like, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. Neptune is also one of your rulers. So even having Mars in your 7th house in opposition to Neptune is like, you're going, where is this relationship going? Do they see me? So that opposition is very strong. It's been strong basically the last couple of days. So maybe you started feeling it around like the 2nd or the 3rd. Obviously you went out of town the end of July, but you know, until that starts to kind of separate, and look at what it's doing in your chart. Like you, I'm born in 89. So I got all this like Cancer and I've got all this like Capricorn. So I'm just like, what the heck is going on with like Mars and Saturn? It's like lighting our charts up like a Christmas tree. Saturn is squaring Uranus, where you're like, well, what's happening? Like, is there going to be a status change? And it's going to square your Neptune, it's going to square your Saturn, it's going to square your moon. And as Mars continues to go through Libra, it's also going to start squaring your Jupiter and your transit Venus. So until Mars leaves about, I would say, 20 degrees, you know, I mean, even your Venus is at 24. Probably the hardest squares are going to be the first 5 degrees. So let's say when Mars gets out of about 5 degrees, which is going to be closer to mid-August, things will start to ease up a little bit. I think Pisces risings, you know, on the other hand, have a lot to look forward to because Venus and Jupiter are coming into conjunction this week. So this could be a very romantic time. This could be a very creative time. This could be a situation where you're feeling very emotionally fulfilled, right? Whole sign 5th house. But it's Placidus, it's in your 4th. So I look at this and I go, well, time to get cozy and comfortable at home. It's time to really prioritize taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, your home, your family, your pets, whatever. Maybe because we're going to see some aspects between Mercury and Uranus that this may actually, you know, bring about sudden changes in relationships. But you know me, my brain is always like way out into the future. So I'm aware that now we're in August and we're actually now within a month of eclipse season. And these eclipses are written all over your chart. So we fast forward to the September 7th lunar eclipse in Pisces, technically in your 12th house, where you're going to feel a little bit more kind of reflective and private. And this can be a time where you're more emotional, and it's obviously in the same sign as Saturn. So there is a sense in really prioritizing your relationship to yourself. This will trine Jupiter, okay? So this is good for creative stuff. Anything revolving around sharing your emotions and like talking to romantic partners, but also like dancing, creating, you know, anything art or music oriented. With an eclipse on your ascendant, your ruler in the 5th, and them trining each other, I would say there's going to be some togetherness and there's going to probably be lots of intimacy. And I would say be careful because those are some baby making aspects. especially for Sagittarius too. Like Saturn is like retrograding out of 5th house to your sun. So that also could mean you're just very emotional. It's the second eclipse that I think is going to get you. And that's going to be the solar eclipse around September 21st in your 7th house of relationships, where in theory, oh yes, okay, new relationship opportunities. Remember, we have 2 new moons in Virgo, one that's going to be happening at 0 degrees, which is going to be later in August. The second one, which will be at 29 degrees, which represents a completion. And this is a funky eclipse because so much of it is saying, hurry up, we got to get going, 29 degrees, but it's conjunct, you know, it's a south node connection. So it's like we have to hurry up and kind of clear out the past. Also, it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is conjunct in your 7th. So it does tell me that there is going to be, I think, some defining moments where there's conversations about dating and relationships, or there could be some changes going on with him, or maybe somebody new pops in. Where it's tricky is that it's going to oppose Saturn and Neptune right along your ascendant. So there's a lot of them going, okay, now I'm ready, or I'm here, or I want to see you, or like, let's hang out. And Saturn and Neptune is kind of like, I don't know, like, haven't heard from you a lot this past month. Where have you been? What's been going on? And you're going to be very critical, I think, with Saturn retrograde on your ascendant of who you want to engage with, right? And Mercury means they're going to be super chatty. So whether it's him or it's another person, there's going to be a lot of action going on in relationships, and also sexiness because, well, Mercury's at a 5. Venus will be in your whole sign 7th, good for relationships. Mars is at 29 of Libra, so it tells me that it feels like it's a significant turning point revolving around whether or not you feel safe and secure in certain relationships. So long story short, it's a combination of Saturn and Neptune going back into your 1st house where you're kind of prioritizing yourself. Eclipses in your 7th house, which feel critical, and you want to know exactly where relationships are going. And currently, Mercury retrograde is impacting your 7th house. And so that could mean that you're not really feeling like somebody's communicating very clearly, or they're kind of like, you know, isolating themselves a little bit because it's 12th house to your 6th. You could literally do nothing, and I don't think it would make a difference. I think I would be waiting to see what's going to happen in September, where you're really focusing on the relationship with yourself. And maybe you're taking a step back going like, okay, you know, somebody's going to show up. They need to actually they need to take action and they need to prove themselves. And that's also Mars in the 7th, you know, as it's squaring, you know, Jupiter in your 4th, as it's squaring Saturn and Uranus and Neptune in your 10th. It's like they need to be the ones to make the move. Where the action is where Mars is. Where Saturn and Neptune is retrograde is where you're retreating and you're taking a step back and you're saying, I'm going to let other people's, you know, actions speak louder than words, right? Very curious to see what happens with that eclipse next month. You'll have to let me know because it's definitely going to be a very big one. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Oh, well, thank you, Enchanted. I'm glad to hear that. Maya says, are conjunctions in synastry considered a bad aspect? Well, it depends on the house. It just depends on the sign and the planets, right? So if you've got 2 malefics, yeah, there could be some problems. Saturn, Uranus, Pluto conjunctions. Some of them are going to be generational. If you're around the same age, but like some conjunctions are nice. Venus-Moon conjunctions, Mars-Venus conjunctions, Sun-Ascendant conjunctions, Moon-Mars conjunctions can be kind of sexy. So you have to look at the house and the sign, but conjunctions are definitely going to be like a magnet, or it's definitely going to bring the attention of those 2 particular planets and that house into focus, so to say. So usually hard aspects like conjunctions, oppositions, squares create friction, but some of them can actually be pretty good. So the only thing I would watch out for is like Moon-Mars squares, you know, Mars-Pluto squares, Venus-Pluto squares. Those can be a little bit more difficult to navigate. All right, so if you guys are just tuning in, you want to get a reading, scan the QR code. You can get in the queue. Readings are open. Please don't forget your birth information and your question. That's really helpful, so that way we can make sure that we're moving through these smoothly. I'm going to now say thank you to our level 4 members. We're going to move on to Gemma, and we've got Hiru and Mary, or yeah, I think that's Mary. Tell me if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, apologies. So we're going to take the synastry question that we have for Gemma. So she's a 29-degree Virgo rising. She's got the sun in Libra and the moon in Cancer. And we're looking at her and her partner, from what I remember correctly, there we go, who is R. And it looks like ours is Scorpio rising, sun in Cancer, moon in Virgo. All right, so we're going to look at the synastry because you were asking questions about an actual ceremony or a wedding date. So let's look at this. So we've got U or G, there are, and they say we're already legally married, but we're having our real wedding day in Italy on August 21st. So let's look at the composite chart. I'm pulling up the midpoint composite. That's one of the composites that I look at in a composite chart. And that'll be in Italy on August 21st. All right, so let's see. We've never had our synastry reading before. Anything fun you see on marriage advice for us? We're both women. One of us has been married. I picked at our composite chart. And Venus is going to be conjunct the MC on our wedding day. So if you're legally married, and sometimes I kind of, I'll have clients that come to me and they're like, I already have a wedding date planned. I booked a venue. This is the day we're getting married. It's going to be in like 6 months. And I've never looked at synastry and I didn't look at the astrology, blah, blah, blah. Rarely are those dates good dates. The same way somebody comes to me with a planned surgery or a book launch or something, and it's not always a good date. So sometimes what I'll tell people is, okay, keep the wedding date because you don't want to change it. You don't want to lose your deposit. But what you can do is you can go and do a legal wedding. You can go to the courthouse, you can sign the documents, you can have some kind of ceremony, boom, you get married, and that's actually the chart that's going to matter. So I'm not saying that the wedding chart doesn't matter because the transits that are happening to your composite chart is actually going to show you what the overall kind of atmosphere of the wedding is going to be like, right? So what's up, Shiloh? So together, your midpoint composite, which is going to take the midpoints of all of your kind of separate natal aspects, is a Libra rising with the sun in Virgo and the moon is in Leo, okay? So the outer wheel is going to be the transits the day that you're getting married, okay, or you're having your ceremony. So yes, obviously my eyes go to the same thing that you were looking at, which is that you're having right around the time of your Venus return, which is great as a Libra rising. It's going to be in the 9th house, which is traveling. It's also dealing with ceremonies. Believe it or not, the marriage is the 7th house. The merger is the 8th house. The actual ceremony, the wedding, that's the 9th house. So you're having it under like a Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Jupiter is also in conjunction to Mars, which is kind of blessing the union. Pretty good stuff. It's also a trine from the North Node and Jupiter, which is about romance. So one thing that I would say that's interesting is that you have had Mercury that's been going retrograde over what will be your guys' composite moon. Okay, so that was in the 10th house. So the preparation for changes to your status, maybe in the whole sign, 11th house, who is coming to the wedding, who can make it, who can't make it. Maybe there's been a lot of like last minute changes with people. I don't know. And talking about how you guys are wanting to kind of get this whole shindig in order. But I definitely feel like with Venus in conjunction to Mars, Jupiter in conjunction to Venus, I like those aspects. Mercury's right on your moon, so it's about making some really prominent kind of announcement about your new status because Mercury has actually been retrograde there. And you're going to have a lunar return. It's right around the time of Venus return. It's right around the time also of a solar return. So there's a lot of things that are heating up in regards to your composite chart that is very similar to the transit. So there's some kind of buildup of energy. Probably the thing that I'm most focused on is what's going on with Mercury because that's going to deal with ceremonies and travel. And Mercury is on the moon and it's a wide trine, but it is trining Saturn in the 6th. So being on time, having everything scheduled, having the assistance, the support that you need. And also, Aries talks about like the marriage. So coming together, celebrating with people, Leo, hold sign 11th, and celebrating your union is great. Also, Mars rules your actual marriage and it's on the North Node in your guys' 12th house. Now it's debilitated in Libra, but I like it because it's saying, obviously you guys were meant to go and do like this like foreign, celebration ceremony. It is in a pretty wide trine to Pluto, so it's about major changes and transformation within the family. And it is also trining Uranus, which is going to be bringing in sudden opportunities for luck, growth, joint finances, merger, So I like the fact that even though Mars is debilitated, it is sextiling your Mercury transit. It is trining Uranus. It's trining Pluto. There's not too many things here that are difficult other than this is going to be coming into what's going to be a new moon. So it represents phasing something out. Obviously, like all of the vibes in the whole sign 11th house is like a party and like a gathering with friends and family. But this is generally representing phasing something out, right? Because it's a dark moon. I mean, you can't go wrong with the sun at 29 degrees of Leo. That's going to be quite a royal celebration. Everything is just very bright and bold and beautiful. And I love all of this energy that you have in Leo because I really feel like it's going to be a party and it's a lot of having fun in the sun. However, just shortly after this, then you're going to see that you're going to have a new moon in conjunction to your Mercury. So that could mean 6 months of, transformation of your joint goals, transformation of names, legal paperwork, documents. If you haven't already done that, you might. And that new moon is very close to your composite sun, okay? So in terms of like the day, I don't really necessarily think there's anything wrong with the day that you chose, but I would definitely go back and look at the day and the time that you actually ultimately legally first got married. Now, in terms of like the synastry, obviously we're looking for conjunctions, oppositions, squares. We're looking at primarily the 7th house and I would say the 5th house. And both of you guys are obviously born in 96. You're a couple months apart. So you're going to have, Saturn, or their Saturn is going to be in your 7th. So that's about commitment and relationships. That can be like a binder or a glue. And it is retrograde. So it's retrograde right over your south node. So it can be talking about a karmic marriage or relationship, which a lot of people in 1996 have because you guys have that Juno south node Saturn conjunction where you would think a debilitated Saturn south node is like, oh, you didn't take responsibility. When in reality, it can mean that maybe, you did get married really young in a previous lifetime and now you're coming back and you're doing it again. Or there is some kind of, karmic connections to the person that you're married to, or maybe this is the person that's teaching you more about marriage and commitment. So you have all of that going on in the 7th house. Obviously, I want to see if like Venus and Mars see each other. So you've got that Venus in Virgo, Mars in Leo. Her Venus sextiles your Mars. And it looks like her Mars trines your sun slightly and also Chiron. North node conjunct the sun means it makes you feel like you're on your like path and within your purpose. Just interesting that there's all of this like nodal stuff, because you guys are born in such close, proximity together. There's definitely a lot of realizing that you can kind of be yourself within this relationship and maybe clear out some old like relationship karma. And Jupiter squares the nodes too, which is about redefining home, family, and obviously like love affairs because it's connected to your whole sign 5th. So you guys have some interesting synastry where there's definitely some squares. I see a lot of partners that have the same sun and moon sign. I think that's pretty traditional for being like the masculine and the feminine energy kind of coming together. Even if you're two women, I've seen a lot of people who are married or they've been like partners for a long time or business partners that have that conjunction. So I like that. And I think that it's interesting that your moon squares your sun, where there's always this sense of kind of going back and forth about like, well, what's going on in the career and like, who am I? And they maybe soften that a little bit and they make you realize that you don't have to kind of do it all by yourself, right? Her sun trines your Pluto. It's an out of element sign, but it trines, and it also opposes your Saturn and, your Neptune and Uranus. So dramatic changes within the home, family, and also dating and relationships. Now, if we flip it around, she's a Scorpio rising. So she's got the sun in the 9th. She's got the moon in the 10th. And your sun falls in the 11th house, whole sign 12th, which some might actually kind of indicate that that's like karmic as well, or unfinished business when it comes to relationships. Your Saturn sits in her 5th, so it's like teaching her about true love and romance. Your moon's in her 8th house, which is going to be about a very powerful connection. I think that the emphasis with Saturn and the nodal stuff in the 5th is going to be more about finding new ways to kind of experience love and romance and kind of express yourself, right? And I would also say that the Mercury-Mars can be really beneficial for incentivizing her when it comes to changes in her status in her career. Mercury trines both Jupiter as well as Neptune. So that can also be about, you know, having a lot of support when it comes to communicating and talking about your career. But you have that moon in the 8th house. So that's like a really, really powerful, emotional, you know, intimate like bond. So I like that as well. Your Venus sign is also in the same as her moon. So that's a nice aspect, even though it's a little wide, which also trines Jupiter. I would say probably the challenge is that, you know, your Sun, Chiron, and North Node sit on her North Node. So it's going to be about changes with relationships with friends. So you might feel like you're somebody who's helping her realize her goals in relationships, or where there are changes in friendships, you know, you're there to kind of help support her. And obviously both of you guys are getting ready to come into your Saturn's return. So that's going to be a really big kind of turning point for you next year. Now, Saturn and Neptune's already dancing on your descendant, so maybe that's that build up towards getting married. But both of you guys are going to be, you know, having that Saturn return. So there's going to be much more focus on merger and intimacy next year for you. There's much more focus on, okay, this is who I am in a relationship to another person, you know, Saturn at a 7 in the 5th. And maybe there could be some kind of collaboration, working together, working out together, you know, helping each other with routines, could be pets. But also like self-expression and like not losing that kind of spark and that intimacy that you're going to want with Aries in the 5th house. So all in all, I mean, I think that, you know, because of some of the Mars and Venus aspects, even though you guys have Venus square Venus slightly by sign, I think that the Mars aspects actually kind of smooth some of that out with Mars sextile Venus. And also, you know, some of the aspects that you have in the 5th and the 1st house makes the relationship like super magnetic. And it's interesting that, you know, her 7th house is ruled by Venus. And recently we have seen, you know, Jupiter hitting Venus, Jupiter hitting Mars. So there's been this talk about kind of this last year merging together and like really committing to each other in a serious way. And Jupiter is moving through her whole sign 9. So it's a really good time for getting actually married, especially with some of the trines that's happening with the North Node in Pisces, right? So I like it. You'll have to let me know. I mean, congratulations on getting married again. Obviously in her chart, that's very obvious. There was going to be 2 marriages, right? Venus rules the 7th and Venus is in the 8th in Gemini. So it means there's going to be 2, and Venus and Mars are conjunct. So there was going to be the first marriage. There was going to be a second marriage. Jupiter's in the 9th house, coming into conjunction with the Sun, and also in a trine to the North Node. So definitely makes sense that there's like another, you know, marriage that's kind of coming through. Oh no, you. Okay, so the partner was married twice, but there's two marriages here in this chart. And it's also talking about getting involved with somebody after they've gone through some kind of significant change. Let me see your chart again. Hold on a second. I want to see that through yours. Could be that yours is at 29 degrees, right? Could be that. And Saturn and Neptune kind of being there. And the South Node Saturn is also in your 7th, so that's part of it. And over the next year, Saturn's not only going to return and hit your Juno, but it's going to oppose your Sun. So whether you were married or you were just dating or whatever, the transits next year with some of those oppositions in your 7th house is going to be very colorful. That's going to be a time that's going to be like, okay, now we're married. Now what do we do next? And like redefining your life as a married couple, but also being like, who are we together and like, who am I? And Mars rules your Saturn in your South Node, and it trines. So I feel like also there's going to be better like social stuff happening with your second marriage, so your second partnership, but there's going to be more support and like harmony with some of your friends. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you. Congrats on that. Send me pictures. Send some to my email. I love to see that. All right, we're going to move now to the next people I have on my list. And there's a number of people who popped in here. So if you guys are looking for a head count, we've got Hiru, we've got Mary, we've got Marissa, Anthony, Alana, Jennifer got in there. We've also got April. Let's see, what else? Michelle, Ammani, Amber, Shiloh. So if you hear your name, that means I've got you. And we'll leave the queue open for a little bit longer because we got a lot of people now. So let's move now to Hiru, and then Mary, and then Marissa, okay? S and J. Thanks, Shiloh. All right, let's pull up Hiru. Leo rising, sun in Cancer, moon in Libra. They say, okay, general reading, please. What to expect the next 6 to 12 months. Anything to look out for? Well, obviously the sun's going to be the most important planet in your chart. That's your chart ruler. So my thought is probably what's going to be most important is the fact that you are going to have Jupiter come into conjunction with your sun, which is a once in a 12-year transit. So that's not going to happen until a little bit down the road, but Venus and Jupiter are meeting over the next week in your whole sign 12, which is good for spa days, rest, recuperation, traveling, spiritual work. And it's looking really sweet around like the 19th. Venus on the sun, moon on the sun, Jupiter conjunct. So I hope you can find some time at like the beach or a spa or doing something kind of spiritual. Really good for manifesting. And then you're going to see Jupiter come into conjunction with your sun. So the last time you had this was in 2013. You'll feel the effects of it by the end of September. Jupiter rules, obviously, romance, creativity, children, self-expression, dating. And the fact that it's hitting your sun makes you feel very inspired and like your imagination can kind of run wild. There can be love affairs, there could be new creative hobbies. Also, it's at a 22, so it could be something that is creative that you're working on, that can be like professional connections. And at the same time, Saturn's coming back into a trine with your sun. And you're also going to see planets going through Scorpio trining that. My goodness. I mean, this could be a time where there's big changes emotionally with the home, with the family, and it's really great for spiritual studies and healing. So that's going to basically be the strongest from September until Jupiter retrogrades back over your sun. It's going to hit again in December of 25. And then it's going to come back and it's going to hit one more time. And that's going to be taking place for you in May of next year. And then it's going to pass your sun basically in June. That is a very big transit. Now, Jupiter also is connected to Pisces, which is your 8th house, which means it's about introspection, healing, psychological shifts, learning more about mysticism, psychological changes, and changes within the home, family, and joint aspects or joint assets get activated. Jupiter is also the dispositor of your Saturn, so it looks like it could be some really big turning points in regards to relationships. And maybe finding people who are culturally different, foreign, different in some capacity in terms of their beliefs or their philosophy. But it's playing pretty nicely with some of your aspects in your chart. Obviously, it's going to be North Node trining your Mercury, which can be good for socializing. It's kind of trining your sun still now, which is good for psychological change. I think the other thing that I would kind of keep in the back of my mind is that you are also going to be seeing, while Saturn and Neptune come back into Aries, you got a little piece of it the last couple of months. It's been squaring your Mercury. So this could represent like emotional changes with friends and like kind of questioning like, okay, where is my support coming from? Do I feel like I'm on my own? Am I feeling like I'm connecting and communicating with people like effectively? It's now retrograde, but in the new year, in January, February, Saturn and Neptune are going to square your Mercury. And Mercury represents goals and friendships. It's also directly connected to money. So there could be a lot of back and forth about financial stuff kind of the beginning of the year. And whether or not you're focusing on investing, saving, traveling even, because it is in your whole sign 9th, pushing you to kind of get outside of your comfort zone and maybe be traveling more independently or taking courses or learning lessons. There can be some like translation issues. So if you're like going to other countries or you don't speak the language, that can definitely be a theme. And I would say just be really cautious and careful with any financial investments or like borrowing or lending while you're having some of those squares, because that looks pretty prominent too. It looks like you're 31 now, so you're in an 8th house annual perfection. So something else that I would focus on is when the eclipse comes in Pisces in your 8th house around September 7th. Trining Jupiter, which is in your 12th on your sun. To me, this is a period of like renewal, releasing and letting things go. It's also going to be trining your Pluto and your North Node. So, obviously touch wood, changes with home, changes with family, it could be you're moving from one place to another. It could be there's some financial changes that happen that's impacting you emotionally, but it can also be that there is like a loss in the family. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong, But sometimes when you see trines between the 8th and the 4th house, that can happen. And sometimes Jupiter in the 12th house is like releasing or letting something or someone go. I have this feeling that it may be more with friendships though. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like a family member. It could be that you change where you're living, but I think there's going to be some changes with some friendships and you're just kind of like, okay, I just have to let it go, you know? So I'd pay attention to that. And up until your birthday next year, Jupiter is your time lord. So the fact that it's in your 12th house on your sun means you would really benefit from regular spiritual or like religious work, meditation, maybe some kind of healing rituals, something that involves like, you know, cleanses or soaking or baths or going to the beach or the ocean. That would be really beneficial. And you may feel called to travel, or you may feel called to go to church or some kind of like spiritual practice. So if you're looking for temples or spiritual centers or churches or things like that, it would make sense with the Jupiter transit. And, you know, Jupiter is exalted here. So you're going to get a lot of sleep, you're going to get a lot of downtime behind the scenes, but it's also going to be about prayer and the importance of prayer and connection with your ancestors. So like creating an ancestral altar can be really good, especially with the trines to Saturn, because they can help you with relationships, they can help you with money. And Jupiter will be trining your North Node and Pluto, so it's really wanting to make some massive changes in regards to the way that you look at home and family as well. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Hero. Definitely, or Hiru, definitely a lot of emotional growth and changes kind of happening. It's going to be a little bit more behind the scenes, but you're going to feel it. All right, we've got Miri, Marissa, Anthony. You guys are all next. And we will call last call here in about 5 minutes. So if you guys want to get in if you want soon. All right, so we've got Miri here, December 11th, 95, at 11:45 a.m. in Russia. So I noticed something that you were saying in your notes, that you were talking about certain planets being in certain houses. So are you looking at your relocated chart for Los Angeles, just so like you and I are on the same page? Because this can be a very Mercury retrograde moment. So I'll let you respond if you're here. So I have you here as an Aquarius rising with the moon in Leo and the sun in Sag. But I'm wondering if you're looking at your relocated chart for Los Angeles, because that's where she lives. So she says, hi Candace, I've been following you for 3 years now. This is my first reading with you. Well, welcome. You should see how many notebooks I have written out from each of your videos. Thank you for your guidance and insights. Well, thanks for your support. So she says, I'm wondering how this full moon is affecting me specifically, as Uranus is in my 3rd, Mars is in the 7th, and Venus is in the 5th until until August the 10th. Most importantly, Pluto is still in the 12th house. And I'm definitely going through a transitional period, going through family karma, taking care of my family, trying to start a new business for more independence. My love life is non-existent. It feels like I'm redefining the notions I used to believe in, but it has been going on since 2023. And at this point, I'm not quite sure how things will play out in terms of my inner joy and ability to live for myself. I'm also releasing past karmic relationship, and then it cuts off. So I can't see the rest of your comment, but I get what you're saying with some of the retrogrades going on. So I'm going to look at this from the transits of your natal, but just for fun. Let's see what it looks like. So this is your relocated chart. Depending on how long you've lived in LA, you can listen to your transits from the perspective of Libra rising, which everything you're telling me, Saturn and Neptune in the 7th, what's going on with relationships, you know, Mars going into the 1st, I'm taking action, dealing with family karma. It's squaring all these planets that you have in Capricorn in the 4th. Your relocated chart's ruled by Venus, and obviously there's like a huge stellium of planets involving Venus in your 4th house, which is definitely kind of family karma stuff, Capricorn. So I'm going to stick to what I know, but you can definitely look at some of the transits here. I'm going to look at what's going on with your actual natal chart. So if I were to look at this in terms of what's coming with the full moon, that will be in Aquarius in your 1st house. So it's showing you the polarity between your emotions, your goals, who you are versus that and other people. And Leo is going to be more okay, you know, creative collaborators, it can be younger people, it can be also romantic partners. And this has been like a hot topic for you recently. I mean, having, you know, Mercury go retrograde over your moon, there's a lot of like, oh, am I making time or am I not making time, you know, for partnerships? Do I want to go back and get into relationships, right? Retrograde. And your moon's at a 5. So it's also about finding romance again, finding that spark again, finding somebody who you are drawn to and you feel like enticed by. And then on top of that, in recent months, Mars actually went retrograde here as well. So it's a lot of like shoring up a lot of like karmic stuff in relationships, but you're just about done. And when you have a really strong sun transit, relationships will actually evolve. So I'm looking at Mercury and the sun will trine your sun in Sag. So actually, I think the Mercury retrograde could kick things into overdrive, making it possible for you to be dating, especially when Venus shows up in your 7th around the end of August. And the other thing to think about is that, you know, next year you'll have Jupiter going into your 7th house as well, hitting your moon. So I do think that there's a really great opportunity for clients selling, you know, selling products, selling services, because the 7th house is also going to represent your marketplace. So this retrograde that you've had, Mars early in the year, Venus just recently, a couple of years ago, Mercury retrograde, it's all trying to get you back into relationship. I think for like a lot of Sag suns with Uranus going into Gemini, it's like, well, how do I approach relationships? They feel kind of disjointed. So I think you're going to see probably this awareness where when you have the full moon that it's potentially bringing somebody who has an interest in you, right? So the full moon is in Aquarius, ruled by Uranus. Uranus is in your whole sign 5th, making changes to romantic relationships and being more spontaneous. And then the moon is connected to Venus and Jupiter. So this is like better schedule, better health. Maybe it means that, you know, you're feeling like you're getting a lot of like support from friends and family in terms of the changes that you're making with your career. And I think that's positive. These are all like good things. It's just a matter of, are you making time for it more than anything else? And then down the road, like if we like go down the road, there is going to be like Venus coming into conjunction with your sun, which is going to be in December, which could be like a good time for socializing, parties, and meeting someone. Actually, Jupiter and Juno will align. So you might go to a wedding or a celebration or a party and you meet someone, or a couple introduces you to someone. And that would be around early December. And then you will start having eclipses next year in your 7th. Okay, which is going to be starting in August of 26. And that'll be a solar eclipse in your 7th, while Jupiter and Mercury are conjunct your moon. So next summer it's on like Donkey Kong. I think it's just a matter of like you going, all right, I'm going to be kind of organizing things in a way where I'm making time for the things that I love to do. I'm making time for, you know, my health, and also, you know, getting away from work or getting away from family, and prioritizing dating and meeting people. And it's all about kind of navigating what your emotions and your feelings are telling you. Because your sun rules your 7th and it's in the 10th, this also means that you will meet somebody through like professional endeavors. So there's going to be like a sense of you boost your career, or you go to a networking event, or you're launching a business, and then it's going to be like, boom, you're going to meet them. And the sun represents your spouse, and Jupiter is going to be directly kind of connected to money, resources, and stability. So when your career is soaring and doing well, you will start to kind of see the turning point where relationship stuff is possible. Naturally, having Venus in the 12th house too, and that conjunction to Neptune and Uranus, is a lot of like weird, funky, clearing stuff up from past relationships. And I'm sure you know that transit Pluto right now is moving through Aquarius, and it's opposing your 7th house moon. So that's bringing like, well, you know, issues with mom, potentially changes with the family, changes where you're living. And you're going through such a profound period of transformation. It's not that you can't bring somebody in, but I think that until you at least see Pluto first come into an opposition with your moon, you've gone through that whole like caterpillar, you know, into a cocoon phase. And then you're kind of emerging in the spring of next year, and you're like, okay, now I feel like I'm more so ready. Pluto will still be in opposition to your moon, but Jupiter will be coming into your 7th house. So by the time you get to like July going into August, I think it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. I think that probably June, July, and August is when you're going to be feeling more so ready, right? Focus on your career and do a lot of networking, or maybe it's going to end up being a client or somebody that you end up meeting through your professional sphere. But Sun and Jupiter is a great aspect to have, especially next year with Jupiter trine that. So relationships will succeed, and transit Saturn is also going to trine your Sun. That's also a reason why relationships are going to be successful as well. Maybe traveling with a partner, maybe you're going to be talking about moving or moving in together. So hopefully that gives you the insight that you need, starting with the full moon, where I think it's just going to show you whether or not you're making the necessary time for bringing love into your life, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we've got Marissa, Anthony, and then I'll have Alana. What's up, Robbie? What's going on? I think I saw David in there too. All the boys are here. All right, so let's go and look at Marissa. Where is she? I know I saw her in here. Just make sure this is the right one. August 25th, 84. What's up, Marissa? We're calling last call if you guys want to get in. All right, so she's 29-degree Aries rising with that sun in Virgo and the moon in Leo. Candace, I'm going to have a mommy makeover surgery, which consists of removing skin from the belly and having a breast lift. Wondering the best dates to get it done. Date I have in mind is October 12th, but I'm open to other recommendations. What I'm looking for as far as astrology shows the best transits that say I'm pretty much won't die during my surgery or post-operatively from complications, and that there are no complications during surgery or after. I also would like the transit to show a healing process that'll be easy, and the results are beautiful. I've been saying this, I feel like I want to scream it from the rooftops, and so I know there's like 40-something, 50 people watching, okay? When Mars gets into Scorpio this fall, which Mars goes through Scorpio every 2 years, that's nothing unusual. Mars will trine an exalted Jupiter in Cancer, which is great for healing, staying home, and anything to do with titties and tummies. It will also trine Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, which means that we are going to have time to rest and recuperate. We do have to be careful with anesthesiology. That's one thing I will say about that 29 degrees, and anything in regards to medication and any interactions with medication. But I've had my eyes on this fall for a while because I'm like, oh, what do I want to do? So you have that working in your favor, okay? Obviously, you have to look at your chart and you have to see what's going on, but Mars in Scorpio is about cutting, it's about surgery, and it's anything about transformation. And Jupiter in Cancer is going to be about healing and staying home, and we're going to have Saturn and Neptune, which is going to be about skin. So I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to over the last couple of months that are like, I need to get a boob job, I need to get a tummy tuck, I need to get lipo, and I'm like, just wait. Just wait till the fall. So you want to take a look at doing this on October the 12th. So that's going to put the sun in Libra. Obviously, looking at your chart, Mars is your chart ruler, okay? And you've got Mars in the 8th, and you are going to have transit Mars already in Scorpio, conjunct Mercury. So Mercury is going to be about health changes. Mars is going to be about cutting and surgery. Both are very close to Saturn, which is going to represent obviously transformation and also your skin. But this could be like, oh, I have to take time away from being in the public or being at work. So it's not terrible, but, okay, there's always a but. And you have Venus in Virgo, so no shade to you, but that's not my favorite place to have Venus if you're going to do something cosmetic. I could pick a different day. Okay, so I'm not entirely sure what days your surgeon does surgeries. I'm not even looking at a calendar because I have to pull it up on my end. So you might want to pull a calendar up as I'm talking to you right now. But I would do something like when Venus is in Libra, when Venus is conjunct Libra and trine Pluto, which is closer to the 19th of October. Once again, I don't know if it's a Saturday or a Sunday. I'm just throwing dates out there. And Venus is going to be trine Uranus in your first. Another option is you can also, and look at, even Mercury and Mars are going to be conjunct. So this is a really good day, the 19th. Another option is you can do when it's after the new moon. The moon will be in Scorpio, which obviously is a difficult place to have the moon. But like if I'm going to have surgery, I would want to do it when the moon is in Scorpio, personally, making aspects or trines to Saturn. So this is another good day around the 23rd, especially because this is going to trine Saturn, and Mars is also conjunct Mercury. So you're taking action, you're doing something surgical, it's a new moon. Now the sun's squaring Pluto, so some people would be like, but I feel like that's keeping you from working or socializing personally. Now we're getting into Mercury retrograde territory, so I'm kind of trying to be mindful of that. But you will have Mars basically in a trine to Saturn really until the end of October. Now you'll have another transit where Mars is trining Saturn, which is going to be here. So this will be on the 27th and the 28th. So you can do those days. Or you could wait till the moon gets into Pisces, it conjuncts Saturn and it trines Mars, which will be November 1st. I don't feel comfortable going any further than that, only because Mercury's in shadow and it's about health, and it's going to go retrograde in the house of surgery around the 10th or the 11th. And it's going to retrograde, okay, it's around the 9th. It's going to retrograde conjunct Mars. So let's say you go and get these surgeries in the latter part of October, which I would. Okay, personally, I would rather you do it the dates that I give you in October. What will happen with Mercury retrograde in your 9th means that, whole sign, you're not going to be traveling, so don't be trying to book anything or doing anything like, well, I'm going on a cruise, like, you know, within several weeks. Absolutely not. Put it on back burner, don't even think about it. Mercury will retrograde, which rules health and schedule, and it's going to come into conjunction with Mars right over your natal Mars at a 4, which is about your breasts. So you're probably going to be going in during the retrograde, seeing the doctor in mid-November, being like, how am I healing? How's it looking? And Mercury conjunct Mars is like, well, if there's still inflammation, you know, we need to let the swelling go down, or if there's some bruising. Be very careful with Mercury and Mars keeping areas clean, because you can actually have infections with that, because Mars can be about inflammation. And I'm wondering, because Sagittarius is the hips, I mean, you're doing a mommy makeover, I get it, like chest and tummy, but it's possible they're doing fat removal from your waist or from your hips or your thighs. That's where you're going to want to be very careful. And I think Mars can deal with also circulation. So if you were having to wear any garments or anything, particularly on the bottom part of your stomach and your hips and your thighs or your pelvic area, be very careful. Make sure that you have several pairs, keep them clean. Make sure that you're changing out any bandages or anything like that, because there could be some issues there, but you're not doing the surgery while Mercury is retrograde or it's conjunct Mars. I think it's just going to be you going back and seeing someone. And then when Mars is in better position, so for example, when Mars gets into Capricorn, then it's going to be trining your natal placements in Virgo and your Venus, and it's coming into conjunction with Jupiter. So it's like, then you can travel if you want at the end of December. Then I think you are going to see with Mars and Venus and Jupiter on your midheaven this glow up, and you're 2 months post-surgery, and then it's going to be oh, everybody's going to see this kind of tightened, toned kind of body, and it's all going to trine your Venus, right? So there's going to be something like that that's going to definitely bring a pretty significant change to your appearance come the beginning of the year. So stick to the dates that I gave you. I think those are going to be some of the best ones. Be mindful of your checkup appointments and everybody that you need to kind of follow up with, and don't be trying to travel for this either. So if you know that you have to go and get this surgery in another city, getting on and off an airplane too soon, or you making sure that your hands are clean or that you're not exposed to anything, stuff like that, that's where I would be really careful. So I'm wondering where you're going to do this. And if you are doing it somewhere, make sure you get clearance and make sure that, you're actually healed enough to, get on the plane and go places, right? Hopefully that's helpful. Enjoy your new body. All right, so we're gonna be moving on. Now we're kind of getting into the group of people who came in after we already had a cue in mind. So we did call last call, so if you guys got in there, happy to have gotten you in. And we're gonna keep moving through this list. So who else do we have? Looks like next is going to be Anthony, and then Alana, and then Jennifer. Okay, so let's pull up Anthony. We've got the other person Anthony wants to look at. There we go. What's up, Anthony? So I have you here August 30th, right? Yeah, August 30th, 1990, 8:57 p.m. in Riverside. So you're an Aries rising, sun in Virgo, moon in Capricorn, and you're asking about another person. So let's pull up the other person who's July 31st, 87 at 10:30 a.m. in Los Angeles. All right, Anthony says, hey Candace, happy 8/8 full moon. I recently started dating someone new. Was wondering if you could check our synastry charts to see if anything stands out. I'd love to know what aspect you deem positive or challenging and anything I should watch out for or lean into as the connection deepens. Well, you're on the inside, they're on the outside. So off the bat, my eyes go to that moon in your 7th, which is really nice for relationships, right? So they're going to be emotionally kind of attentive and connected. They also have their Venus conjunct your Jupiter. Venus rules your house of relationships, so it's good for 5th house romance connection, but also it's in the 4th. So, you know, home and family ties, you know, feeling like you can hang out at home and still have intimacy and romance. Their sun is conjunct your south node, as is their Venus. I feel like south node Venus should come with like a warning label. You know, at first it's like really good, but then it's like, oh my God, you have to be mindful that there can be certain patterns where you guys are repeating things from the past. Now, Leo is very dramatic and passionate, so maybe you like that. I don't know. There's some help. It does stabilize with some trines to their Saturn, so it might be, you know, there's more adventure and traveling and going places and learning about culture and other things that can keep that a little bit more tame. But you guys do have South Node Sun, which means that there is a sense of recognizing each other and being drawn to like that kind of charisma that comes from Leo. So they're a playmate or like a natural lover, and they have Venus and Mars in Leo. So their Mars is conjunct your Venus. You have a lot of really good relationship aspects, like a lot of them, because you happen to be a Virgo with a bit of Leo in your chart, and you know, they've got a lot of Leo, and they've got some Scorpio and some Capricorn too, just like you. So Jupiter on the ascendant is going to make you feel like anything is possible together, or you know, maybe they bring you a lot of joy, or you really love being around them. Venus Jupiter is going to feel like a big love story. Venus South Node is going to feel familiar. Sun South Node is going to feel familiar. Mars Venus is conjunct, which is very passionate and romantic. Moon on the descendant, some pretty good aspects. They are born with their Mars square your Pluto, so there could be some jealousy stuff that can come up, or issues revolving around past relationships and partnerships. So that's definitely possible. So you want to watch out for that. Mars square Pluto brings up a lot of drama. And the Sun and Venus square Pluto, and I'm aware that they're undergoing right now Pluto in opposition to their Venus and their Sun. So pretty dramatic, life-changing relationships, people coming in that's shifting their awareness and their perspective. And I say this like lovingly. I haven't even looked at their ascendant yet. But if they have Venus, Sun, Mars, and Leo, there's a lot of like, I want what I want, and this is what I love, and me, and the passion, and the creativity. Like, and then you add that with like Jupiter in Aries. I mean, everybody in 87 has that, and they have Saturn and Sag, so a lot of them are very fiery, feisty, dynamic. So look at all these like fire trines. So these are people who do not wait. They go after what they want. They can be very self-focused. But so far, so good. I mean, Pluto's in your 7th, but you have Pluto in your 7th natally, and I don't think that's really going to impact you. Their Saturn and Uranus trine your Venus, which I like. I feel like that can actually be like very adventurous and fun. And the Neptune is retrograde, very close to your moon, which you were born with that aspect. But it can mean that you can kind of pick up on emotions and things, and you don't even really have to have conversations. So there's that, you know. And then when we flip this around, they are a Libra rising with the moon in the first. They've got North Node in the 7th with Jupiter in the 7th. So your Leo sits on their Mars. So, you know, your friends might really like them. They may really like socializing and going out and doing things with you. It may feel like a lucky charm when it comes to just like meeting people and connecting. Their sun falls in your 12th house. Their Mercury falls in your 12th house. I don't know if you've dated a Virgo before, but Libra, I mean, this can be the case with any rising sign. So if you have somebody who's got planetary placements in your 12th house, it means that there's always like a side of them that you can't quite see very clearly. You may, you know, even if the relationship, you know, separates or deviates for whatever reason, you'll have dreams about them. There is this feeling of unfinished business, literally Virgo in the 12th, and that they can really highlight some of your insecurities maybe, especially when it comes to like perfectionism. So there's that. Okay, so having, you know, your planetary placements in the 12th of their chart basically means that they're going to feel like you're hard to read. They're going to feel like you're hard to forget. They're going to feel like you're somebody who is a little bit like mysterious and they're not seeing the whole picture, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's fine. Your Mars is in the 8th house, which is pretty passionate. And your moon is in their 4th house. I'm a Libra rising. I've dealt with Capricorn moons. And what's always interesting about this is like once you guys start hanging out together, it's like you essentially just kind of like morph into having the same home. Like even if you have separate homes, like they're always going to come home and they're going to spend time with you and vice versa. So being that it's your moon that's in their 4th house, it's like you're going to hang out at their house all the time and then you're just going to kind of like move in. It's going to be like your space and you're going to feel like at home there. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Your North Node is in their 5th, which is good for romance. So there's definitely a focus on having unconventional, unusual relationships. I think it's going to be very obvious to me that you're going to kind of drive them crazy a little bit. There's also going to be a sense of them, because the 11th house represents other people, like when you guys start talking about dating and relationships and where you've been and who you've been with and who you're still friends with, be careful, because being friends with anybody you've been in relationships with, that can bring up some drama in this relationship, in my opinion. And, you know, the node trine the known is nice. Node sextile node is nice. You don't have anything in their 7th house, but there's enough going on with the 11th, which talks about friendships and goals, and the 5th, which is about home building, that I think it'll go well. But you're going to feel like you might kind of drive them batty a little bit, especially as like a Libra rising and the South Node's going through the 12th house. They're going to feel like sometimes you might be like a little evasive. But still, you know, North Node's in Pisces, eclipses are in Pisces. You know, Virgos are going to have a lot of significant turning points in relationships. And you'd have to look at your Venus transits to see what's kind of happening. Well, Jupiter's going to hit your Venus next year. So that's definitely a whole build up going into next summer where there's going to be a lot of relationship focus. But I would just kind of keep in mind, as an Aries rising, you know, Saturn's going to cross your ascendant in the next 2 years. And when that does, it's going to be about you working for yourself or being more independent, or, you know, maybe redefining who you are. And then there could be more relationship commitment when Jupiter hits your Venus next year and Saturn trines in 2027. So, you know, sometimes I tell people too much. For you, I think they're a really good match, personally. But I think for them, they're going to see you and they're going to kind of be like, there's something I just can't quite put my finger on about this. So try to be as transparent as you can with them. And hopefully the relationship continues to blossom and things go well. What's up, Mary? I'm sorry I missed you, but I just did your reading. It was just a couple readings ago, so you might be able to scroll back. I don't know if you have to wait until after the live is over, but I did do your reading. All right, we've got Alana, Jennifer, and then April. What's up, Alana? Another 29-degree Virgo rising. Let's pull you up here. Let's see. I've got a number of you guys. I always remember who the 29-degree Virgo risings are. I don't know why. Kind of like that with certain placements. All right, Alana says, I'm wondering what's in store for me with work love with this full moon. I almost had the opportunity for a big promotion at work, but it didn't work out because I haven't been there long enough. I also had a fling with a guy back in Portland, but that fizzled out and I feel ready for something more significant. I think you have my info. I do. Well, the full moon in Aquarius tomorrow is in your 5th. So, you know, it's a nice place to have it. I think that this can represent, you know, focusing on having some fun, getting out of your comfort zone, going and doing something unusual or different. By whole sign standards, it's in your 6th, so it's going to be more about work, but I don't really read it as such. I look at it as the Libra rising, which you're about a degree away from, where Mars is in your 1st house, where you're kind of pumped to be like, okay, I'm making changes, I'm getting active, I'm doing things. It's trining Pluto in your 5th, so you're focused on hobbies, dating, romance, meeting people in an unconventional way. Bars, casinos, theatrical places, places where there's groups or there's crowds, comedy clubs. And Mars is in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, where you're like, something's fizzled out with someone, but like, I still want to have fun. So this is a time where I'd be like, go and do something fun. Go this weekend, go where you want to go, even if you have to do it on your own. And you'll see some positive turning points with work when Venus is coming into conjunction to Jupiter next week. I think you're right. It's a timing thing. You know, Saturn and Neptune's retrograding back over your descendant, coming into your 6th house of work. So you haven't been somewhere long enough, or there's some things that you didn't quite see. But I'm pretty confident that the eclipse that's going to be on your sun in September means you're getting a lot of positive feedback from people in regards to your work and your relationship with your coworkers and your productivity. And it's going to trine Jupiter, which is the ruler in your 10th. So working well with groups, meeting new people, meeting new friends. I think maybe you're going to be up for reevaluation, or there's going to be news that's like, hey, we can't do it yet, but it's coming, and you will get that. Probably because Saturn and Neptune are also squaring Mercury, you're like, I'm just not communicating well with people, with relationships, or I'm kind of confused with what's going on at work. Just stay tuned. It's going to get easier. And you're going to find that as we're getting into the eclipses then next year, which are going to be kind of happening in Aquarius, that's going to be more about more responsibility and changes at work. Ruled by Uranus, and that's going to square Uranus. So that'll be coming like in February. So probably I would say from the fall into the new year, that's when you're going to be seeing some changes, I would say, with work. Relationship-wise, not much has changed. Saturn and Neptune are retrograding back on your descendant. So can people come back? Yes. Can people be confused and kind of ghosty? Yes. So keep that in mind over the next like 2 months. Really all the way until November, December. It'll ease up a little bit, but then it's going to come back in January. And then you have a new shot at making relationship stuff happen, especially in Pisces season next year with Jupiter trining all this Pisces. And I also think about the eclipse that's coming on your ascendant. Girl, you don't even see it yet, okay? You do not even see it yet. But at the end of September, you have a solar eclipse in your 1st. And it's at 29 degrees, which is like a complete reboot for your chart. So an eclipse is action. Virgo is going to be about health and habits. The South Node is there, so you're releasing, you know, any fears or any doubt. You're communicating more, Mercury, and you're more interested in talking to people about what you want financially and also in relationships at the end of September. That eclipse is right in opposition to Saturn and Neptune on your descendant, where you're like, okay, I'm taking action. I'm not waiting for people. You know, if somebody doesn't call me back, if they don't want to get together, if they're not choosing me or seeing me, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. And this trine to Pluto in your 5th house cusp is like, oh, well, I'm going after what's going to make me happy, or I am starting a new hobby, or I've met a younger person. Be very careful with this eclipse right on your ascendant with Mercury there. Trining Pluto could be creative energy, could be expressing yourself in a different way, but that's also pregnancy transits. Eclipses on the ascendant can be that. So that could be within a 6-month period. And that's setting the stage for the next eclipse, which will be the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, March 3rd, 2026, ruled by Mercury. Mercury's retrograde in your 7th. See, this is going to be about where if you haven't met somebody, or if you're meant to connect with somebody, that'll be a huge theme in March of next year, right? Eclipses on your sun, eclipses on your ascendant. I mean, your ascendant, your chart ruler, your moon and your sun are the most prominent placements. So the fact that you're having an eclipse that's going to be on your sun this fall, and then also on your ascendant, what? Is there anything going on with your moon? No, although that is right around where you're having the triple conjunction in December going into January. And then your chart ruler is Mercury. So nothing's happening there yet, but the North Node's coming in conjunction with Mercury. Work is really going to pick up. So will relationships. They're going to be a huge focus for you pretty much in the spring of next year. And you can't go wrong with Jupiter in your 10th house. That looks good too. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we got Jennifer. What's up, Jennifer? I know I've got you in here, so I haven't had to add any charts yet. So let's pull your chart up. Jennifer says January 3rd. No, that's not you. Hold on a second. No. Yeah, March 13th. Sorry. Jen, March 13th, Bedford, Indiana. Yeah, that's you. Question, full moon on the South Node, North Node. How's professional life going? Well, let's see. So full moon is going to be on the South Node. It's going to be Sun on the North Node. Well, obviously if you have a lunation that's hitting the nodes, it's pretty damn important, because this is going to represent the Dharma and the direction of where you're going in this life. So, North Node in Leo in the 11th house is, I am here to create, collaborate, and entertain or bring the crowd or the group together, right? And the sun is the ruler of this, which is in your natal 6th. So it's about creative collaboration with people professionally, finding solutions and ways to be able to kind of boost other people up and like get work done. Sun in the 6th. Don't underestimate the fact that the North Node's conjunct your sun too. That transit alone would be enough for me to be like, hi, you need to do your 11th house stuff. And this is also your whole sign 12, obviously Leo. So it's about some unforeseen changes that are coming up in work and like tapping into your creative talents and finding ways to forge new relationships and like partnerships, North Node sun. And then the full moon is on your South Node. So the sun is saying you're going to come into connection with groups, friends, associations, social opportunities to really shine. And what I love about this is that the full moon in the 5th house is saying you're tapping into some kind of past life karma that's about creativity, romance, self-expression, joy, having fun, younger people. And your South Node is ruled by Saturn, which is also in the 5th house, and it's also ruled by Uranus, which is obviously natally in the 11th. So kind of like past and future are meeting in the present. I would actually look at this full moon, that's how I've been looking at it, as somebody who has North and South Node in these signs, as like, oh, this is going to be like glimmers of what's actually getting seeded next February when those eclipses start in. Obviously, you know that you're getting ready to gear up for quite a few Pluto transits. Pluto's going to hit your Saturn, your South Node, a lot of stuff over the next 20 years. So during these eclipse cycles that we're going to see in Aquarius starting next year, it's going to be a cycle that eventually will lead to a North Node Pluto conjunction. So as like a Virgo rising, I would look at this and go, am I making time for fun? Am I making time for creativity? Do I want to start my own business? Am I getting involved in trading or crypto or stocks? What is my relationship to my inner child? Am I having fun? Am I making time for dating? Can I update also as a Virgo rising my workspace, my softwares, my gadgets? How am I bringing technology in to help me be more productive? Am I changing offices? Am I working with a new team? There's a million different ways that this can kind of go down. But I think that the full moon on the South Node might bring in nostalgia from the past of people who you've worked with, projects you've worked on, romantic partners, and also it's a time to really cut loose and be creative so you can actually share with your audience. This is where the Mercury retrograde has been. This is also where the Mars retrograde has been. And what you're gearing up for is going to be a reverse nodal return in a couple of years, where usually you're like, okay, I'll do all the grunt work. I'll, put everything together. I will make the sacrifice of, my happiness or my creativity to support the team. When you're going to have the North Node going through Aquarius with Pluto, that's going to be like, no, it's going to be all about my health, my productivity, my happiness, my creativity, my joy. So there's going to be so much more emphasis on that over the next couple of years that whether it's a Virgo rising or it's a Libra rising, I would be like, the next 2 or 3 days, get creative, have fun, like be spontaneous, go and do things that might seem like childish or like immature, right? Like tomorrow is the full moon. I have it in my 5th house, really close to my North Node. And I was like, I'm not working. I want to go play laser tag tomorrow. That's what I want to do. Or I want to go bowling, or I want to do something fun. So I'm still trying to figure out what that's going to be, but that's that spontaneous doing something different type of vibe. So pay attention to what you're drawn to doing tomorrow, and, taking risks and having fun, because that's the direction and where your life is actually going to be going for the next couple of years, especially with Mars in your 1st house trining this. What are you passionate about creating, right? And so it can be also a very romantic energy here as well. Loving that it is right on your South Node, loving that, it's very close to your Jupiter, which is obviously going to bring you more opportunities for joy and, having fun. So I think that that's like the long and short of how I see the transits on your North and your South Node. Obviously a huge marker and a turning point for change is it's also squaring Neptune in your 2nd, which is, what do I value? What do I possess? What talents do I possess? What do I want to invest in when it comes to fun and also extracurricular activities as well? Now, I've got another one for you, and this is going to be on your company. Let me see, do I have this? I'll just kind of plug this in. So Jen, company. And let's look at the date for when you incorporated. 8/8/2013. So you're having your business birthday at 12 noon, and that was in Philadelphia. Libra rising, Sun in Leo, Moon in Virgo. All right, so Philadelphia. Okay, what's the full moon interruption on the company's financial health? So the full moon is going to be here. Obviously, it's in opposition to the sun, so it's creating a full moon, not just within the 10th and the 4th house, but also to the sun, which, if you look at this chart, and I wonder, was it exactly noon that you incorporated? I hate to be like a stickler, but look at the sun and Mercury, they're intercepted. So when you have transits going on with the sun, or Leo, like the retrograde recently, the Mercury retrograde, the Mars retrograde, it's gone all through here, and likely it brought some changes in the company that you didn't see coming. That's how I generally see intercepted houses manifest as. So when you're talking about the health, you're really talking about what's going on, I'm assuming, with Saturn and Neptune coming into the 6th house. It's kind of like on the line of the conjunction to the 6th house, but it's retrograding back. So I look at that and I'm like, all right, Mars is the ruler. What's been going on with Mars? Well, Jupiter is going to hit Mars, so that could be an expansion that's coming within the business. But what kind of an expansion? 6th house things, hiring new staff, assistants, getting into new spaces, changes with schedules, new expectations for employees. And Mercury has been retrograding over your natal Mercury, and you're coming into your solar return. So to have the solar return where you're going to have a full moon means that everything that's going on in this business literally for the next year is going to be big. Well, what else just happened? You had your Jupiter return. So even though you already had the return, you're going to see the effects of Jupiter in Cancer all year long, which in the 9th is good for marketing, good for expansion, good for traveling. This is going to be good for media, anything revolving around legal negotiations and agreements.
And that will eventually come into a trine with Saturn in the 5th. So that means that there could actually be a lot of new creative opportunities that could really help the expansion of the company. And, you know, Jupiter's going to hit your sun next year. There's going to be eclipses on your sun next year. So really this is gearing up for, I think, a lot of the bigger changes, which will happen next summer when Jupiter comes into your 10th house and it hits your midheaven. Probably the most annoying thing I'm going to assume that's going on right now is that Pluto is in opposition to Mercury. And that could make it really difficult, you know, connecting and communicating with people, or getting the team on board, or, you know, team leadership exercises, or feeling like there is a lot going on emotionally, or, you know, in the lives of your employees, or your family even, or your home life, that's really kind of putting pressure on the career. And it looks like you've been trying to work through that as Mercury has been retrograde and Mars has been retrograde over your Mercury. My goodness. So Pluto's no longer in opposition directly. It's going to feel like it the next couple of months, and then it's going to move away. But certainly, you know, Saturn, Neptune coming into the 6th house, I mean, that's work, 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 and more work. And that can mean that, you know, to some extent it feels like it's a grind. In other ways, it could feel like there are some employees that are failing to do their due diligence to get things done, and that they're not seeing things very clearly. Positive is that it's trining Mercury. So this sounds weird, but like, have you been considering like opening a new office? Are you thinking about also like getting like remote assistance? Saturn and Neptune can be help that's in a foreign land. And because it's trining Mercury, it's like, are you going to be getting support assistance? Are you going to be, you know, like bringing in people who can do, you know, virtual assisting or virtual work? Are you going to be incorporating new digital technology and other things, you know, for productivity to get things done? I mean, you could do all of that. So the Saturn Neptune trine to Mercury, I think is actually really beneficial, particularly with like legal matters and marketing. And travel. So I'm not too worried about it. And I know that, you know, next year when Jupiter goes into the 10th house, it's going to trine Saturn and Neptune. So there's going to be, through a lot of initiating, you know, new locations, new staff, new cycles, new schedules, new work, it's going to actually help you really thrive and feel like that, you know, the business is growing, and it's probably going to get a lot more traction, whether that's media or website traffic, you know, anything like that. So I'm not really worried about it. I think you get kind of protected with like the Jupiter return. And Jupiter hitting Mars actually is really good for money here pretty soon too. So Jupiter is going to hit Mars at a 17. So that's in end of August going into September. Yeah. And that's going to trine Saturn. So this is about getting creative and finding new ways to market and expand the business. Even from whole signs, Saturn and Neptune is going to be in the 6th house, where you're going to see eclipses, which is kind of getting things on track work-wise and even legally. And then it's going to trine Jupiter in the whole sign 10th. So I think you have a lot to look forward to be honest with you. And you got 29 degrees on your midheaven. That's the millionaire's degree. So part of me kind of wonders what's going to happen when Jupiter hits that 29 degrees. And where is Venus going to be? Because Venus is going to be nearby. Oh boy. Yeah. So Venus and Jupiter are going to be right up here in June of next year. Really good for your career stuff, I think. I think there could be actually a lot more money coming in. And then Jupiter will go into your 10th when Venus is on the sun. So I would look at this the same way I would look at a solar return for a birthday, you know, for a person. I'd be like, well, you're having a full moon on your birthday, so it's going to be big. And if you think about the Libra rising, you know, 11th house whole sign Leo is groups and collective, and then the North Node and the full moon is in the 5th. How we're getting creative, maybe you're bringing younger people in on the company, and they are influencing the direction that you're going with it, or you're having to work with younger employees, or you're having to kind of modernize and update things. That's another way that I would see this. Hopefully that's helpful. Reads a lot like a Scorpio rising. And ask any Scorpio rising with Saturn and Neptune in their 6th house. That's just like work, work, and more work. Or trying to find work. Or trying to get things organized. So hopefully your business continues to be successful, because I think that that's very likely going to be the case. Thank you for your support and your generosity. I appreciate it. All right, so now I've gotten to the part here where, there's Venus conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. That's going to be our astro weather this week. The biggest positive transit, I think, of the summer. So we all have that to look forward to, right? And like the Venus-Jupiter conjunction is going to be felt all week long. So get your cakes and cookies and cosmetics and indulgences on. You get like a pass on that this week. So I've gotten to the part where I have to input now all of the other people who popped in. So April, Michelle, Ammani, Amber, Shiloh, Sam, and Bobby. Give me just like 5 minutes, guys. I got to plug your charts in really quick. While you're here, make sure you subscribe, click the bell button below, give me a thumbs up, and let me know, what do you guys have planned for your full moon? And I just saw Kirsten there. Sorry, girl. I'm going to put you first. I will take
Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name's Candice Marie. Thank you guys so much for supporting my work.
Alright, so
if you want to take your astro journey to the next level, consider joining my YouTube channel memberships. So here's what you guys can expect if you join my channel memberships. Now, if you become a supporter for level 1, this is going to support my work as a full-time content creator, and just a thank you.
And April, if you're watching, which one are you? Are you the one who's born in April, or are you the one who's born in October? Just so I know who's who.
For the content that I'm putting out on the regular. If you join level 2 memberships, you're gonna get a shout out from me on my channel for supporting my content. If you join level 3 memberships, you're gonna unlock my daily horoscope club, where you have access to a daily horoscope for all 12 of the zodiac signs. And if you join my level 4 memberships, this is gonna make you a VIP. You're gonna get all of those things, plus you're also gonna get a live reading with me once a month. We're here every Friday. You get to choose between a 3-card tarot reading and a 1-question astrology answer. Whether you're a new subscriber or you've been here for a while, this is my heartfelt thank you for joining my channel memberships and helping me be a full-time content creator. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and make sure you leave me comments. Any interaction with the channel really helps my channel grow and helps you guys stay in the loop.
For Michelle, where are you experiencing your solar return? What city? Are you still in Pittsburgh? So April, it looks like you sent me payment twice, so I'm going to refund you for one of them, just so you know.
because it was the same question both times. Thanks, guys. Almost done. So, Bobby, you're asking 3 questions. You got to pick one. Let me know what your one question is. You want to know about moving, finances, or you and your son, although that would be more a synastry question. All right, let's pull up Kiki. I've got you here, Aquarius rising, sun in Scorpio, moon in Gemini. So let's go back to her question here. Thanks for your patience. Tell me something good. Thank you. Appreciate all you do. Well, thank you. Well, let's talk good things. Honestly, I would love to be in an Aquarius rising right now. I know you guys are dealing with Pluto transits, but this is actually a really, really good time for you guys. Part of it's because, number one, you know, your chart ruler is now retrograde, right? Saturn. So you're actually getting like a bit of a break, especially when it comes to anything revolving around personal responsibility. It's not me saying slack off, but things aren't going to feel as heavy as they have felt recently when Saturn was direct conjunct Neptune. Technically, in your first house, it's still the house of self and the body. For Aquarius rising whole sign, it's going to be about how you're communicating, what you believe in, what you're learning, reworking websites, rethinking, you know, directions that you can go when it comes to entrepreneurial ideas. The list goes on. The other thing is that you're going to have this full moon that's very close to your north node, which is about kind of going your own way, being unconventional and being different. Maybe it means you need some alone time to kind of really reflect on what it is you want to build or create, but it's still quite positive, especially because the full moon is going to trine your natal moon in Gemini. So this could actually bring some much needed peace, privacy, recuperation, especially on the home front. The other thing that I think about is your modern day ruler, which is Uranus, and it's in Gemini. So you're going to hear it's also a really good time for creative breakthroughs for Aquarius risings. It's still in your third house though, because you've got some skewed houses. So this is more about getting creative with how you can market yourself, focusing on media, anything revolving around short distance trips, anything also kind of connected to new ideas.
And this is sextiling Saturn. This is also trining Mars in your money-making house / relationship house. And it's also trining Pluto. Like, some pretty good things all around that's going on. I think for a lot of my Scorpio suns, and I'm Scorpio sun too, and I'm seeing it both from Scorpio and Libra perspective. Mercury retrograde in Leo has been a lot of drama with friends. South Node Mars for Scorpio suns is going through, obviously, the 11th house to your sun. So that represents with eclipses, breaking things off with friends, clearing things out, you know, kind of letting people go. And it looks like recently Mars has been going through your 7th house of relationships in Libra, making an opposition to Saturn and Neptune, where there's like a sense of you being like, I just don't see myself going in that direction with certain relationships anymore. Mars can mean you have value differences, you have communication differences. Maybe you're realizing like less is more in how you're communicating with them. But I could definitely see from both perspectives that there's some relationship changes. And I think this kind of resonates with like the Pisces rising horoscope. That's like, well, Saturn and Neptune's going back into your house, you know, your first house, and you're learning to get kind of quiet and you're more focusing on peace. And you'll see the same thing kind of coming through some of the eclipses. That's going to be about really reevaluating and reassessing your 7th house. So who your therapist is, who your spouse is, who your clientele is, who you can market to. And you'll see this is a really strong time for marketing. So I see what you're kind of saying. And that's Mars going into Libra. But also with like the Virgo eclipse, right, that you're going to have in your 7th house, that's going to be all about bringing in new clients. Actually, both of the new moons in Virgo are going to be in the 7th house. So it's really prompting you to start thinking about how you can kind of get down to business and figure out what relationships are working or not working, or what people really want, or what you can sell. And Virgo energy is friendly with Scorpio energy. It's also friendly with all your Capricorn. I think a lot of what's going on is that you're in a 12th house year. So, you know, with Saturn being the ruler and you've got your natal Saturn in your whole sign 12th house, there's a lot of like kind of working behind the scenes, regrouping, reassessing, resting, and thinking about what new directions you're going to go in with your work and your professional life. And as you're coming into the fall this year, you're going to come into your birthday season, then you're going to go into another Saturn year. But at least it's going to be a first house year. So all of the work that you're doing behind the scenes and restructuring things is actually going to be beneficial. And the fall is going to be very strong for like some of your professional endeavors. But if I had to pick one rising sign right now, I would pick Aquarius rising, because I think with, you know, Uranus going into your whole sign 5th, it's very creative, it's very fun. It's definitely more unconventional when it comes to what you're kind of working on, especially if you're in the creative, you know, industries. And I think Pluto on the ascendant retrograde is actually nice. And I think Mars going through the 9th house is like so amazing for marketing new things. So you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Enjoy the full moon. You're going to have, you know, the next eclipse that is going to be in your first house. So it can be both a turning point for money, but it can also be for self-esteem. And that's also going to trine Jupiter. So you know how this goes. I already told you with your first pregnancy, but this is another one with the first house full moon and the trine to Jupiter in your 5th. Be very careful. But it can also be creative projects, you know, that are kind of emerging, or feeling more emotionally kind of tied to your children or your creative process, and maybe creating and working from home in a different way. Investing in some of your hobbies too. So this could be, well, I need to get new tools, or I need to spend a little bit more money on products, or I'm spending money on marketing. But, you know, like what that ultimately brings you and getting a little bit more recognition definitely can be really good. Jupiter return just happening. Jupiter trining all your Scorpio. Jupiter trying the North Node. I mean, this is a time to really focus on things that bring you joy, right? And like learning how to kind of play. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, moving on with my list. We have now got April, Michelle, and Ammani. You guys are all on deck. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Let's see, April. And I'm not sure which one was you and which one was the other person. So April, I've got April 1979, 3:02 p.m. in Fairbanks, Alaska. Virgo rising, sun in Aries, and the moon is in Aquarius. And then we've got the other person for the synastry. There we go. Who is an Aries rising, sun in Scorpio, moon in Sag. And April says, I've been wanting to see your take on my synastry relationship to the rest of the month for my family and I. My husband and I are homeschooling our 3 children and building a health practice together. Well, synastry-wise is looking at the 2 charts together, right? So synastry is almost like a natal chart. The natal chart doesn't move. It's me going, well, this is how you guys are with money, and this is how you are with your relationship, and this is how you are with your kids, and like I can do that. But I think that you're gonna, for what you're asking, which is like what's going on the next month with everything we're trying to do, that's gonna be more transits to your composite chart. But what I will say is you guys have some indications, at least when I look at his chart over yours, where, you know, North Node is conjunct Jupiter in the 10th. That's good for work. It trines Venus in your 7th. That's good for relationships and working together. And also it trines his Uranus and your Uranus in the 3rd. So teaching, relationships, communication, working together, that's a really strong water trine that you guys have. I would assume the Mars-Saturn conjunction can be a little annoying because, well, they're both in Virgo, so it can be about being perfectionist, but it can also mean that there could be a little bit of friction. But friction can be good. And then he's got a ton of planets in Libra. I'm assuming, you know, you're the Aries and they are the Scorpio. So you'll have to correct me and let me know. But certainly this is the only thing that kind of like is agitating. And then obviously he's got Jupiter and Pluto in opposition to your sun, but it's in financial houses. So it's about, you know, kind of family values, building wealth, resources, that kind of stuff. Your sun's on his ascendant. That's nice. Your Pluto is conjunct his Mercury and his Jupiter. So you help him get organized and you're focused on productivity. Saturn and Mars is the responsibility revolving around kids. Virgo can certainly be health, but also education. So synastry, okay, great. But let's look at the composite because really that's what you're asking me. So if you're focusing on homeschooling all those kiddos, God bless you, Godspeed with that. That sounds like a lot. And also you're building a health practice and a business together. So this is your composite chart together. This is a chart that you can look at that's going to kind of give you predictions for both of you in a relationship sense, unless you have your marriage chart. Cancer rising, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Capricorn. So you're asking me like what's going on? A lot. Let's talk positive. Positive is Jupiter's on the ascendant. And that basically means that through positivity, expansion, and growth, anything is possible. Especially because it's now coming into trines with the North Node. So family can grow, Jupiter in Cancer. You're going to focus on working together, Jupiter rules work, and also kind of merging and aligning your schedules and being of service to each other. And the trine of the North Node in the 9th is definitely about travel, philosophy, religion, education even, so it can be good for that. And obviously Venus and Jupiter are along your ascendant, so it can be like a really like lovey-dovey time. It is all coming into opposition with your Moon and Mercury, so there's a lot of like putting the family first before, you know, clients or business, or even before your own relationship. It can feel like it's very much focused on what's going on with the family first. What's challenging at this time, you know, Saturn and Neptune are conjunct your midheaven, so there is a sense of being like with its retrograde, you know, what are we selling, what are we offering? We're doing something completely new and kind of entrepreneurial Aries. And there could be this sense of, well, what direction is it going to go in, right? Saturn and Neptune. And it will conjunct that degree again, which will be in like February of next year. So that's going to be the real turning point. Maybe watch the mid-October full moon in Aries. That'll give you some insight too. But next year, Saturn and Neptune show up and you're going to see whether or not this is doable. In the last 6 months, you've had Saturn and Neptune hit that. You've had eclipses in the 10th house. You've had retrogrades. So there's been this back and forth that's like, what do we need to do differently? And like, where do we need to kind of take some risks and maybe even be more independent? Very frustrating for a Cancer rising because it's been squaring that. And you've been trying to be optimistic about this growth, but it looks like the last couple of months you've really had to push. And another big transit you guys are going through is Pluto, which represents your children and also romance and intimacy, is sitting right on top of your sun. So that's like, holy cow. I mean, that's a lot in a relationship chart. Your relationship is changing and evolving. Can mean that you guys are really focusing on how you can support each other, you know, in terms of intimacy, finances, psychological things, focusing on, you know, terminating debt or making sure that you have time for one-on-one. And Pluto isn't just in conjunction to the sun, where you guys are getting serious about wanting to make some money, but you're talking about your values more. You're talking about what needs to change with your resources. And Pluto's also conjunct your Juno. I love that you have Juno, Venus, and the sun conjunct in your composite chart. That's great for a marriage. I really like that. I feel like, Pluto is definitely gonna, and has been giving you a run for your money with like Mercury retrograde in opposition to that, and like Mars in opposition to that. A lot of it's come down to changes in your guys' spending habits or in your value system that's really pushing you to say, we need to make a change. So if you can get through Pluto conjunct your sun and your Juno and stay married, and also be able to majorly revamp and regenerize, your finances and also like your relationship, amazing. In a couple of years, Pluto will come into conjunction with Venus in the 8th, which could actually be, you guys could actually make a decent amount of money. But you're looking at 2.5 years of building your career. Now, I don't say that to kind of throw you off. I think it's a good idea. Right now, focus on budgeting. In the fall, focus on scheduling. And as you get into the beginning of next year, that's when you're going to get more serious with Venus and, the sun and Mercury, going into Aries with Saturn and Neptune. It's going to be like March and April is going to be the big turning point. You will start seeing eclipses happening that's going to aspect your Saturn. And a lot of that's going to be about communication focus that's coming up for the two of you guys in September. And that looks very, very, very important. Pluto is your kids. So, Pluto can apply pressure and stress, and the fact that it's sitting on your Juno and your sun is like, wow, okay, kids are a huge focus right now. It's testing our relationship, and, if you guys are having issues, making time for intimacy and mom and dad time is very important. You may benefit from talking to a couples therapist or an intimacy coach. Maybe it's just about embracing this new phase in your guys' relationship together. And, you guys were born with Pluto that was in a trine to both your Venus and the South Node. So I think that you knew a lot of the relationship was going to be about kids. But maybe, the reason retrogrades and trying to kind of balance the whole kid thing and education along with like a business, it looks like it's been a lot because the Mars retrograde slowed a lot of that stuff down. But you seem very incentivized to kind of like really make some big financial changes. And I think with Moon, Mercury in your 7th house, you guys have the opportunity to, to do business together, Capricorn, and also to be able to have difficult or hard conversations and things that are going to really benefit your guys' relationship in the long run. So focus on scheduling and, how you can be of help and of service to each other. I think that's a huge focus as Jupiter and Venus are kind of sitting on your ascendant right now. Hopefully that answers your question. And if you're watching this, because you asked me the same thing twice, I will refund one of them. So I will send one of those back to you, okay? All right, we've got Michelle, Ammani, and then Amber. All right, Michelle, August the 7th, 87. And did we hear back from Michelle? Because you were talking about your solar return, and I'm like, where do you live? Are you still in Pittsburgh? So happy belated birthday. Michelle had her birthday yesterday on the 7th. I want to know my solar return year in regards to the eclipses and the themes of money and romance. Well, I can't see your solar return without the location. So unless I hear from you, I can't really tell you anything, but I can tell you that eclipses in the 7th are going to be about relationships, and specifically, you've already kind of come out of some of these in recent years with your, South Node and your North Node transit. The Virgo eclipses are going to represent either karmic relationships coming in, people from the past, reconnecting with clients, work partners, people who are familiar. And the North Node Pisces eclipses are going to be more revolving around, who am I? What do I want? How am I feeling? So obviously you got a ton of planets in Leo, right? So Mercury having gone retrograde over your Mercury has been a lot of what is not working or what needs to be worked through in regards to relationships, work, or health. Mars went retrograde through here too, which also caused some problems. And then Pluto has been in opposition to this. So to be honest with you, not to be like negative Nancy, but I'm not seeing a lot of positive stuff in your relationships. I think it's a combination of the fact that still for the rest of the year into next year, Pluto is opposing your Mercury, which rules the 7th, which basically means there could be some friendship issues, there could be some unexpected breakups or separations, there could be a lot of emotional, psychological tension in communicating with partners and not really feeling like things are working. 2 is Mars is going through your 7th house opposing Saturn and Neptune. So I get the vibe that's like people aren't showing up, or they're kind of unavailable, or they're kind of ghosty or inconsistent, or they're not following suit with what you need. Mercury retrograde over your natal Mercury and your Venus would say the same thing. Then the other thing that I think about is that as you get into the fall, there's now going to be these eclipses, which are huge markers for change. Positive is like, I love the Pisces eclipse on the 7th of September, right on the ascendant, trine Jupiter. It's a lot of, well, what's going to make me happy and what do I love? And buying myself flowers and taking myself out to do things and filling my time with hobbies and things that I enjoy. It's also very friendly with your 7th house. So the better that you are to yourself and you're focusing on your happiness, the more that it can actually bring relationships in, right? And then you'll see the second eclipse, which I think for a lot of Pisces risings, we're going to have them looking at their partners being like too little, too late, not good enough. Positive is that you'll have 2 new moons in Virgo. One will be a solar eclipse, but it's at a critical degree, which means it's now or never. So I see this particular eclipse for you, because it's on your south node, as like this is a window of opportunity. That's like if certain people want to come in, and whether that's people from the past or if you're potentially getting ready to enter into a karmic relationship next year, there is a very short window for people to come back and like connect with you or make amends. And I look at this as the eclipse on the south node as you're ready to clear people out, and it's opposing Saturn and Neptune. So you might see a wave of people over 6 months come back, but you're like, what do you want? Venus will be connected to your whole sign 7, so that's good. So you can set intentions there, but I feel like ultimately you're going to realize that some of the people that come in that like you don't like them, or you're feeling like you're unsure about committing to relationships. But you're likely going to see a turning point next year when Pluto is no longer opposing your Mercury. Okay, so that's going to be, January on. And then when you have a Virgo eclipse in your 7th, right on your descendant in March, that's going to be more about relationships. And that's ruled by Mercury, which is retrograde in your sign. So that's going to be about whether or not you're walking right up to somebody, if you're having a chance meeting, AKA things get a lot better spring of 2026 forward. And then you'll see Jupiter come into conjunction with your Mercury next summer, which means maybe a new job, new health, new habits. Maybe you meet somebody at a gym, or you meet somebody through work, which is very likely, by the way, with Mercury and Venus in your whole sign 6th. And then relationships are going to be a lot better and a lot easier as well once you're kind of getting to spring into summer of 2026. You'll still have Virgo eclipses, obviously, but they're going to go, beyond your birthday next year. So next time, let me know where you live so I can look at your solar return. But that's how I'm kind of seeing things in regards to the relationship department. You have to look at more than just the eclipses. You have to look at the south node. You have to look at the ruler. And obviously, you were born with your moon in conjunct your 6th house ruler. So there's a lot of like having to figure out what your goals are when it comes to relationships. Your 7th house ruler, what your goals are when it comes to relationships. And those Pluto transits could be the death of you with some of those oppositions. So hopefully you're faring well in the midst of some of that. And I would also say you're coming into now this year, you're going to be 36. So you're in a Taurus Venus year. So that's highlighting your 3rd house of communication. And you've got Venus as the ruler in the 6th. So better communication, maybe travel for work. Maybe you're learning more about health and wellness. You're going to want to watch Venus transits very closely. Those are going to be very important. And Venus will not be retrograde between now and your birthday next year. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful. I hope you had a good birthday. All right. So we've got Ammani, Amber, and then Shiloh. Ammani, September 16th, 93 in Colombia. And it looks like you're a Scorpio rising, Sun in Virgo, Moon in Libra. Ammani says, will I make money doing music or writing books? That's a good question. So money is going to be your second house, which is Jupiter or Sagittarius. And Jupiter is in Libra in the 11th, which is in a sign that's associated with art. It's in the house of the collective, social groups, and recognition. And it's conjunct Mars, okay? Your Jupiter is highly aspected. Not only is it conjunct your chart ruler, but it also squares Uranus and Neptune in your money house. So there's a lot of like, I want to create, I want to perform, I want to be in front of people, I want to participate in the arts. But the square to Uranus and Neptune is like, but am I going to make any money, right? And Uranus is intercepted in the 4th. So as you get older, you realize like, oh, is that actually going to bring me something? And then Neptune is going to represent, your home and your family and like your living situation. So it's a little bit complex in how you actually go about earning money. I would be looking at the fact that over the next 2.5 years, Saturn's going to go into your 5th house of performance and art. It's going to start opposing Mercury. So next year you're going to be like, am I making any money doing this? And then it's going to start opposing Jupiter. And then it's going to start opposing Mars. And I would say, kind of takes on some of the themes of Sag rising for the most part with Saturn and Neptune in your 5th, which is like, if I'm going to create, if I'm going to design, if I'm going to perform, if I'm going to write books, whatever I'm going to do, it needs to be mine, because there is a huge influence that other people have on you. And what's been happening recently with the South Node eclipses in Libra is it's been kind of clearing that out, making some changes in your friend groups and dynamics. You're still seeing that happen now. And now all of the planets are on the other side of your chart. So rather than connecting and collaborating or, following the leader, you're like, no, I got to do it myself, even if it's kind of independent, I'm going my own way. And what you want to look for is positive aspects or transits to your Jupiter that will bring about money. Well, Jupiter's squaring Jupiter right now. You also have Jupiter coming into a square with your Mars. So that's really kind of pushing you to really focus on your 9th house themes, which is traveling, learning, having a mentor, a teacher, or a guru. But I think that, you can make money performing or doing something that's like artistic or kind of music related. But I don't think it's going to be consistent. That's kind of the vibe that I get. Now, your moon is going to rule things connecting to writing, publishing, and teaching. And your moon is conjunct Mercury, which I actually feel like the sun and the moon in the 10th house wants to be recognized as somebody who's either a teacher or they're published or they're like an author. So I think that I would probably go in that direction, especially knowing that right now Mars is on your moon, so you're more inclined to do that. Pluto, your chart ruler, is in the 3rd house of the mind and writing, trining your moon, which is much better for anything in regards to writing and publishing. And now Uranus is going through your 7th house, and it means that you would either need like a writing coach, a teacher, a mentor. Maybe you're looking for somebody who is going to do representation, like a publishing agent. That's what I would be thinking about. Scorpio risings need help. Saturn and Neptune going in the 6th house, whole sign, it means you guys need help. So this could be people who could represent you if you're serious about wanting to go write or publish your book, So my vote is just with some of the transits, you're better off focusing on publishing, teaching, training, rather than performing. You love performing, but I don't think that over the next couple of years it's going to be as successful with Saturn in opposition to your Mars and your Jupiter. And if you are going to be performing or doing anything in terms of, music, it needs to be on your own. Seeing so many Scorpio risings that are like in bands or, they play instruments with other people, and with Saturn going into the 5th house opposing the 11th, you're not going to mesh well with other people, or you're going to feel like what you're creating or what you're putting out there people aren't as receptive to. So I'd much rather you see go in the direction of writing personally. And Virgo, midheaven too. It's like these are people who are very, very, they're really intense about their craft. They want to make sure it's perfect. And so I think with like Pluto in the 3rd house, like what new softwares or AI or, audio notes or whatever, like there's new things, there's new technology that can help you write things much more quickly. It could help you get traction much more quickly, get recognition. You'd have to focus on media. You'd have to do some marketing maybe with Jupiter in your 9th. But I think that it's very doable, and I would more have you go in that direction. And South Node's going through your 10th house still for like the next year. So, that's basically saying you're taking a less kind of like structured, rigid approach in how you look at your work. and you're focusing more on the North Node in Pisces, which is what is my gut telling me? What am I creating? Sure, when Saturn and Neptune goes back into Pisces, I think you're going to be feeling pretty much from September until the new year that you'd much rather be making music. That's what I think. But I'm not convinced that that's actually what's going to pay the bills. I'm more convinced that if you're actually getting into like a writing routine and you're being more consistent with that, that's actually going to give you a lot more support in the long run, especially knowing that Jupiter is going to be in your 9th house, and that'll be this year and next year, which is going to be really good for like publishing. So I would go more in that direction personally. Hope that's helpful for you. We've got Amber, and then after Amber, Shiloh and Sam. Let's see, where is Amber? Here we go. February 24th, 81. Oh, wrong Amber. Hold on a second. June 26, 82. Sorry, I've got a number of you guys. There you go. June 26, 82. All right, so Pisces rising, Sun in Cancer, Moon in Virgo. And Amber says, what should I expect during the eclipse season? I am single with 0 prospects, have a heavy feeling on my heart today for no reason, recent dream of large waves and a hurricane coming. Could it be around the eclipse? Yes. There are 2 lunations that I think about, and you know, whether you're a Pisces rising, Cancer sun, you're very intuitive. There's going to be a lot of water events. Okay, so Saturn and Neptune have been in Aries, which is more military operations and like heat and like pressure and storms. But when Saturn and Neptune sit around 29 degrees of Pisces, it's conjunct fixed star Shiat, which is just like it sounds. And we see a lot of drowning. We see a lot of issues with boating accidents. We see a lot of hurricanes. With Uranus in Gemini, we're going to see a lot more hurricanes and tornadoes and issues with air. So I think about how we're going to have an eclipse in Pisces, which is generally, emotional, sensitive, spiritual, what have you, but it still deals with the sea, okay? And now Saturn is in 29 degrees in this sign. So right after the eclipse, it's going to hit Saturn. The other thing I think about is that this is going to trine Jupiter, which is the ruler. So Jupiter expands, it swells emotions and also water. Cancer is going to be more how water is impacting homes. And Saturn and Neptune and the moon, we've seen when there's the moon going through that part of the chart, the last 2 years, dams, and levees flood. We see flooding that, takes over people's homes. We have seen destruction of homes. We've seen a lot of issues with immigration. We've seen a lot of issues also with, mental health and drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. But, eclipses, even if they are positively aspected, like this, one ruled by Jupiter, trine Jupiter, which for a lot of people is going to be, they're full of emotions, and Pisces about conclusions and completions. So kind of biting off what you were saying, where you're like, well, I have this heavy feeling something's coming. Yeah, well, no shit. You're a Pisces rising, you got a moon in Virgo. The South Node's hovering around your moon. So that's about an emotional clearing. It can make you a little bit more nostalgic, or you can be feeling like you're wondering when or if you're going to meet someone. But these eclipses can bring somebody in your chart, but they could feel karmic or familiar in some way. The eclipse opposes your moon and the sun is very close. Jupiter's dancing on the North Node, so that's an opportunity for expansion in relationships and romance. So I would say never, especially this next week. Things can actually get pretty good. But the second eclipse, and I haven't really talked about this yet, but this eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees, where there's a lot of drama revolving around health issues in the world, just in general. And 29 is like leadership revolving around health. Mercury's conjunct, so there's going to be news that's dropping about legal matters connecting to health and wellness and like support. And that will oppose Saturn and Neptune. So I think of like, for example, all the stuff that's going on right now with FEMA, right? So there's stuff that's coming out right now that if you're speaking out against APAC, certain states can be denied FEMA support or any support in regards to if there are storms or if there are like natural disasters. I think that's connected to this, like what they can and cannot do in terms of that. And certainly I've got my own issues with FEMA. So if you guys know anything about that, they're not necessarily good guys. But this eclipse is going to oppose, so leadership making statements and opposing Saturn and Neptune things. You know, you're going to hear about drug bans. They certainly already have. They just banned mRNA vaccines. That's real. And this is also going to be about things connecting to hospitals, pharmaceuticals, funding, anything revolving around support and aid when it comes to emergency situations. And certainly there could be some kind of humanitarian crisis with this conjunction, this solar eclipse, and the opposition of Saturn and Neptune. So could I think there'd be a storm? Yeah, I'm not really seeing a storm in your life. I think it's going to be more prioritizing what's going on with you and your emotions. That still does make aspects between Jupiter and the North Node. So you need to see positive stuff in your 7th house, or you need to see positive stuff with your Mercury. The fact that one eclipse is slightly squaring your Mercury and the other one is also squaring your Mercury is saying it's trying to get you out of the house, out of the past, into meeting with new people. So go and hang out with like work colleagues, right? Virgo in the 7th house. This eclipse, I think somebody's going to be really interested in you, but you're not going to be so sure about them. That's what I keep saying, but that's how I see it. Like Saturn and Neptune is like, what's the catch, you know, in your 1st house. And Venus will be in your 7th. So it can definitely be bringing in like a romantic partnership, but this is a solar eclipse. So it's kind of kicking off what's going to be like 6 to 12 months of that. And then you'll get to February, March next year where there's, you know, Virgo eclipses and Mercury retrograde in your 1st, where maybe then you're making a decision about what you want relationship-wise around early March, right? Right here. That's just, you know, my kind of perspective, my interpretation of how I see it. Still, you know, Jupiter on the North Node, Jupiter sextile the 7th house. I think you'll be surprised to see what new relationship opportunities come up for you this year. I also think that with the North and the South Node squaring your Mercury, once again, not thinking about the past, getting out of the past, getting out of the house, traveling, moving, right? All of these things can actually give you an opportunity to really bring a new relationship in, particularly soulmates. I've seen with like South Node going through the 7th house, it could be soulmates or people kind of coming back, or, you know, people who you're kind of meant to meet. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Amber. Keep me updated. Let me know what's going on. All right, we got Shiloh, Sam, and then Bobby. Did we hear back from Bobby? Did Bobby pick which one they want to know about? Let's see. Where is Shiloh? So we've got Shiloh's chart here. Well, actually, I'm not sure who's who. So you didn't say. I've got one in Kokomo. So that's the Libra rising, the sun in Capricorn, the moon in Pisces. And the second person, which is 9598, that's the other. What's up, Born Under a Wandering Star? How's it going? And then the other chart I have is a Virgo rising, Virgo sun, moon in Pisces. So we're going to be looking at the synastry here. So I don't know who's who. I'm looking at the Capricorn, and I'm going to put the Virgo chart over it. Okay. So for the Libra rising chart, obviously you're both earth signs, so those trines are nice. I like that. Saturn in the 7th is interesting. That can represent some karmic boundaries, limitations, commitments, or blockages that you need to move through. Moon in the 5th house is great for romance. Moon conjunct Jupiter, great for partnership, good emotional rapport. Uranus conjunct Venus does make me feel like it can be a bit of like a love at first sight or kind of spontaneous back and forth on and off relationship. Their Mars is in Leo, their Venus is in Leo, and you have got Venus in Aquarius. You've got a Mars-Venus opposition, which is like star-crossed lovers, which could be a lot of friction. It could be a lot of fun. And your Mars and their Venus don't see each other. Okay, so you're the one that I'm looking at. So obviously, you know, being somebody who's got your chart ruler and all of these planets in the 4th house, this is a very private, anything revolving around home, family dynamics, your family history, anything like that, that's you. So you were born with Venus conjunct Uranus. I have the same conjunction here. Different, it's in Capricorn. I have a Capricorn 4th house stellium as a Libra rising too. And what's interesting is like whenever you're Libra rising and you have this many planets in your chart ruler in the 4th house, like a lot of the stuff is very hidden. So whether it's like your family, your private life, or just your like natural demeanor, like you're very Capricorn, obviously, but also like Cancerian. Like you can't have a 4th house stellium and not be super emotional or very sensitive or very intuitive or like very raw. So yes, you're a Capricorn, but you know, you get on very well with this Pisces moon, with this Pisces Jupiter. You get on very well with the sun in Virgo. So there's like a lot of trines and sextiles, which I really like. The other thing that I think about, you know, just their Uranus retrograde conjunct your Venus. Like, do you feel like it was love at first sight? Do you feel like it's an unusual, unconventional connection? Is there something different about the relationship that you guys have in some way? Because that kind of strikes me as something that's interesting. Obviously, they're born with Uranus in opposition to Mars, so I'm sure that their temperament is interesting. You know, Virgo, Sun, Venus in Leo, you know, Mars in opposition to Uranus, they can be kind of a little bit more spontaneous than most people. And that square to Saturn is also very interesting. So let's flip it around. Let's take a look. Oh, and then the final thing is you have a Juno Chiron conjunction. And their Lilith is on your ascendant. So they can be really obsessed and fixated with you. Like they really are drawn to you, especially sexually. And then Juno represents commitment. The North Node is marriage. So they can feel very devoted to you in like a very odd way. It's like, oh no, I'm very committed to that person. And then when we look at the Virgo rising chart, obviously they got a lot of planets in their 12th house. So between the Pisces moon, the Jupiter in Pisces, you know, the stellium in the 12th house. This is not your typical Virgo. They could definitely be a little bit more creative, a little bit more passionate than most Virgos, and also a little bit more private. Now, all of your Capricorn stuff lands in their 5th house, which they love. Like the 5th house and the 7th house, I think are the real kind of like tellers in like synastry. If one partner's got those 2 houses lit up, if another partner has it lit up, you definitely check all of their boxes, right? Venus in the 5th house is romance, Uranus conjunct Neptune, maybe you kind of shake them up and wake them up a little bit. Sun being there, Mars being there is just very like, yeah, like taking romance relationships seriously. Your Saturn sits on their 7th house cusp, so you can definitely commit to them. It is conjunct their Jupiter, so that means you can commit to, you know, religious ceremonies, legal ceremonies, could be marriage. And then also the moon is conjunct Jupiter in the 7th house. I love that aspect. I have that with my husband. That is a really good learning to grow and mature and keep your humor and be able to expand in like a relationship aspect. I like that. Your North Node's conjunct Juno, but it's in their 2nd house, so they really learn to value relationship and commitment. I think the only thing that's just like a little tricky is your Venus is in the 5th, which they like, but it opposes Mars in the 11th. So it can mean that there's like a little bit of back and forth in how you guys look at romance, love affairs, you know, children, anything like that. But all this like Capricorn to Pisces sextiles is nice. And both of you guys are Pisces moons. So that's helpful because you're going through the Saturn transits at the same time. You're going through the North Node stuff and the eclipses at the same time. So you're both going to be feeling that very strongly on an emotional level. And the fact that they're a Virgo sun, Virgo rising with Jupiter and the moon in Pisces means that they were supposed to bring somebody in who has very significant Pisces signatures. Well, you do. Look at all these planets conjunct Neptune, and then also you've got Saturn and the moon in Pisces. Like you can kind of deal with like the emotional side, like the sensitivity, like the craziness, right? Like there's definitely something there that can be a little crazy about Pisces energy. And having 29 degrees Pisces moon, I mean, you got Saturn and Neptune that's still sitting on your moon, right? So the 5th house and the 7th house gets checked. I feel like your chart is very, very, very good for your partner. I think you said their name starts with a J. I could have sworn that's what you said. But I think when I look at their effects on your chart, you're never going to fully know or understand somebody who has the sun in the 12th house. There's always going to be this feeling of not knowing or feeling everything. Maybe it's okay because it trines all your Capricorns so you can hang. Maybe you love the moon in the 5th house. Saturn in the 7th is going to be a little bit more tricky when it comes to matters of relationship, commitment, financial security, you know, intimacy, that looks a little more difficult. But I think that the Jupiter moon stuff, the 5th house stuff kind of trumps that. And the other thing that I would just say to be aware of is they are a moon square Pluto. So that is going to represent there being quite a bit of an intensity revolving around relationships with women and home and family dynamics, or like mother, you know, related things. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I think that you can, at some point, I would go and learn about the synastry of Uranus and Venus in conjunction, and also the synastry of Venus in opposition to Mars. Very strong, but maybe they're unconventional. They're different than, you know, what you usually or traditionally kind of date. Maybe they're, I mean, are they younger than you? Yeah, they're younger than you. So that could be that. Uranus in the 5th house is like, I don't really date younger. Oh, they're younger, you know. But it was like a sudden, like maybe a fling that turned into like a relationship. Certainly over the next couple of years, I would say like 2026, you know, Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house is like, are you seeing relationships clearly? Pluto conjunct your Venus, are you really in love with this person? Do you really want to like forge that bond and make it more serious? These are going to be things you're going to start thinking about. It's not so much age, it's much more the transits, right? And they're going to have eclipses in Pisces in their 7th house, which is being more in tune with the emotions of a partner, listening to them kind of go on and on about spiritual things. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you. Thanks for hanging out. Come back anytime and let me know how it goes with your relationship. All right, so we've got Sam, and then we've got Bobby. Let's see, 623, 82. All right, Sam, I have you here June 23rd, 82 at 11:41 p.m. in Johannesburg. That's going to be June 23rd. Okay, so Pisces rising, you've got the sun in Cancer and the moon in Leo. Wow, Mercury retrograde over your moon. You've had Mars retrograde over your moon. So what's your question? So general reading for the next 6 months. So that can get really in depth. So I'm just going to give you the bare bones, but the bare bones is what you really want to focus on is Jupiter. Okay, so for the next year, Jupiter is going to be hanging out in Cancer in your 4th house. What does this mean? Going home, visiting home, expanding your home, traveling, maybe this could be buying property, this could be visiting with family, and it's a time to really be focusing on your safe space, right? And figuring out where home is. It was a pretty big theme because you had a Mars retrograde there a couple months ago. So maybe you've made those changes, maybe now you're enjoying it, maybe you're thinking about venturing and going to a new place. There could also be major changes that are going on with like working from home or like parenting themes that can come up for like you as a parent or relationships with parents. That can definitely be a theme. You are going to see also Saturn and Neptune retrograde back into Pisces starting in September. So pretty much from September all the way to, let's say, January, February, Saturn and Neptune's back in your sign. So this is focusing on your career, your body, your goals. This is also going to be focusing on your vision. And it can mean that you're a little bit more spiritually inclined. You're better with boundaries with other people. You got to watch your health, particularly your feet, your immune system. Be careful with water. Be careful also with drugs and alcohol or anything that can be kind of indulgences that you might not stay totally grounded in. There will be an eclipse there. That's going to be taking place on the 7th of September, which is conjunct your ascendant and trine Jupiter. So this could mean this is about creating like comfortable, safe Zen space in your home or some kind of spiritual work or meditation work, focusing on healing and releasing. And then you will have another eclipse, which is going to be in your 7th house of relationships in opposition to Saturn in September. So this is more about who am I partnering with? Who am I meeting? And it's going to set forth a 6 to 12 month cycle where you're focusing on relationships. My advice is, because not only do you have in the fall Jupiter trine Saturn, where you're really focusing on your emotions, your home, and your security, which I would do, but also when it comes to your own natal Jupiter, Pluto is squaring that. And that's basically saying there needs to be a sense of making some big changes and transformations when you're with your goals, and whether that's your friendships, who you surround yourself with, your financial goals even, that's putting pressure on you in a big way to change or evolve. Eclipses in the 7th house might mean you work with a counselor or therapist, you meet with an astrologer, maybe there is going to be new business partners or people who you can kind of bring in who you can work with. Uranus will be retrograding back over your Venus, so I see that as being something that's really prominent. In particular, you're going to see that like November until about May, where there could still be spontaneous moves, changes in how you communicate, express, or deal with money or love. And I would also be watching this Mercury retrograde that's going to go on in your 10th, which will be in November. So that could be some job change stuff, or I would be really careful with planning trips or traveling in mid-November to December. There could be some delays. And you might feel like you want to take a course or you want to be learning something new in November or doing a certification. And then next year in March, Saturn and Neptune are going to conjunct in Aries. So you basically just need to get to about January, February, and then Saturn and Neptune's out of your sign. And then I think things are going to ease up. Jupiter on your North Node in the 4th house, ruled by the moon, is bringing up staying home, creating, being more emotional. Honestly, I mean, the moon is the ruler, and you've got Jupiter that's going to come into conjunction with your moon. This is like, are you going to get into home designing, decor, real estate? Are you going to consider having a kid or being a parent? Is there going to be some new kind of creative hobby that develops into a career or a business that could be successful going into next year? All of that stuff. I love that you've got like the Leo moon in the 5th house. And even though there's been retrogrades there that are going on, it's been trying to kind of wake you up. Big changes in my home and with my mother, and I'm changing jobs. Yeah. So, Mars and Mercury retrograde on your moon, but it's been bringing up inner child stuff. Maybe it's bringing up responsibility for parents or parenting on your own. But I think you're taking a lot of it in stride. And with Saturn and Neptune coming into a square with your sun, it's really pushing you to kind of get clear about your schedule, what you can and cannot do, what you do or do not have the time or the energy or the funds to invest into, and also really focusing on having better emotional health, right? So hopefully that's good transits. Next year, Saturn and Neptune are going to start squaring your sun, so that's really, really important. But I think Jupiter going through your 5th house and hitting your moon next year is actually going to make you happy, and you're going to be better organized and I think more involved with what's ever going on with like home and family matters. Growing pains, that's what I call that transit, growing pains. Hopefully those transitions are smooth for you. All right, now we got Bobby, the real MVP for waiting the longest. Where is it? Did I spell it wrong? Oh, maybe I didn't put that in there. All right, well, let me get Bobby in here. This is for Bobby Joe, February 19th, 1971, 8/19. Bobby says, tell me about my finances. I'm concerned for my home. All right, Bobby, I've got you here, Libra rising, Sun in Pisces, and your moon is in the sign of Sagittarius. All right, so home is a combination of the 4th house, which is going to be more your actual residence and anything revolving around your family, and also Venus, which is the ruler of your 2nd house of possessions, okay? So in your chart, your natal Saturn is in Taurus in the 8th. So this can be talking about when it comes to home, debt, mortgages, loans, change, transformation with home, joint resources, being able to pay for home. And then Venus is also in the 4th house. So the good thing is your Venus is in a solid sign and it's in the 4th house. And I know, being a Libra rising, Venus in Capricorn, you really want to make sure you have a solid home structure and that there is stability. And it's at a 16, which is a Cancer degree. And it trines Saturn. So it says that you can stabilize and generally you can maintain your home, even if that means you have to beg, borrow, steal, or you have to take out a second mortgage, or you have to dip into savings, or there is some kind of support from a partner or another person, or even family. So it is pretty stable in your chart. So there's got to be something else that's going on with Saturn right now, and there is. Saturn and Neptune currently are retrograding in Aries. So I'm just going to go on a limb here, Bobby. Okay, so if the 4th house is your home and Saturn is retrograding through your 7th house with Neptune, there is a sense of being like, is anybody helping me? You know, 7th house can be about confronting other people. So confronting partners, confronting roommates, confronting family members, Saturn rules family, about whether or not you're feeling like they see you, they're helping you, they're supporting you, they're showing up for you. And Mars in your chart represents your partnerships as well as money. So there can be a sense of you going, do you not see that I'm like busting my ass and I'm like bending over backwards, trying to do everything I can to kind of like maintain the home? Like, where are you? Why do you not see me? Why are you just letting me like drown? Like, when are you going to show up? So you can get kind of agitated right now. Take it easy the next couple of days while Mars is on your ascendant. Now, what you're also seeing is that, let's see, Saturn is retrograde. So it's going back into the house that deals with loans or debt, or it can be dealing with renting. So, you know, landlords and stuff is in your 6th house. But I'm not really seeing anything that's like, quote unquote, losing the home. Like, I'm more looking at this like, what are the issues with a relationship or with a family member or not feeling supported? Now, down the road, okay, you are going to see Mercury come into your 3rd house. And Mercury can be about endings. And it's also dealing with siblings. It could be dealing with moving. It could deal with vehicles. And it's going to retrograde over your Neptune and your Jupiter. So there is like a possibility that there's either more communication with family or there is a sense of having to kind of like pivot and make a change with your living situation. That could come up for you in November. I'm not going to say it will, but it could. Especially because it's squaring the North and the South node. So it makes me wonder if you're like, you know, am I having to work out a deal with a landlord? Am I having to kind of like find a way to get something paid? You know, should I be moving and downsizing? That could be a theme. And then Jupiter actually represents moving and traveling, and that opposes your Venus. So you're like, I don't want to do that. I'm really focused on work right now. And maybe it's like how you can be working to feel like you can support your home. But even then, nothing's saying like you have to move. You don't have a Moon square Pluto going on or a Saturn square Pluto going on. So you've actually been through worse, in my opinion. And then the Mercury retrograde in November will go into your 2nd house of money. So you have to really watch money, but it'll trine Saturn. So it makes me feel like you could actually stabilize your home. Maybe it's about restructuring a payment plan or maybe refinancing a mortgage. And then you're going to have Mars, Venus, and the Sun all coming into conjunction right at the end of the year, the beginning of next year, right on your Venus. Honestly, I look at this and I'm like, there's going to be some really good financial situation that's supposed to happen in the new year for you. Or there is going to be some breakthrough with finances from other people, or there's going to be an inheritance, or there's going to be something that's going to come from your family, or a lot of equity maybe that's been built into your home that's making you think about whether or not you want to sell, or if you now have the funds to get into a stronger home base. Whatever happens, you're going to be much happier at the beginning of next year with your home and your family situation. So I'm not really seeing it as a situation where you're losing something. Now, to play devil's advocate, I'm aware that you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be right on top of your Pluto, and that's going to be around the end of September. For a Libra rising chart, Pluto is your whole sign 2nd house ruler, and that means there's a lot of anxiety and stress about the changes happening with your finances, and you're like, oh, I'm losing sleep over it. Even this will oppose Saturn and Neptune. So it's still relational things with your partner, but it's also about being like, it could cause health issues if you're not sleeping well, if you're stressed out. It can also create problems at work. So you really got to take care of your health with that eclipse on your ascendant. I really recommend going into September, having a solid meditation or breath work routine. Mercury is the lungs, and Libra on the ascendant is how you're communicating and being diplomatic. And I feel like this is about you finding ways to be able to kind of calmly, you know, communicate what you need and what does and doesn't work for you, so you're not falling into situations where you're having problems with partners, coworkers, you know, people connecting to your home, family, whatever, and seeing some health related matters because you can really stress yourself out with these aspects. Even moon conjunct Mars, like you're a really great communicator, but I think that with that in your third house, usually people like that, like when they get anxious, they go for a ride or like they smoke, you know, or they have some kind of habit or something they do with their hands. And I'd rather you rewire some of that into breath work so that way you can navigate communication with other people and have more peaceful connections. But still, I'm looking at Saturn and Neptune coming up in your 7th next year, and this is going to be more about the relationship with others. So whether it's a romantic partner, whether it's your kid, certainly Saturn is your home and your children. There could definitely be a back and forth that you're doing where it's like you're really looking at who you're partnering with and whether or not, you know, people are acting, you know, Saturn, Neptune, angry, hostile, you know, irrational, selfish. And you're learning right now with Mars on your ascendant that you got to focus on yourself. You got to focus and prioritize your own joy, your own happiness. You can't get wrapped up into other people's problems. So I would advise you, if you do want to come back, we can talk about what's going on with your kid. It would be best to do a synastry reading. So we could look at their chart and your chart. But Pluto coming into your 5th house over the next couple of years is going to represent a radical transformation in a relationship with your kid, which the North Node's going to hit your North Node. It's going to hit your Sun as well, which could be about a Sun. So I'm optimistic that you may actually see some changes here. But a lot of it's going to depend on what's going on with his chart as well. Okay? I think that by the time you get to January, February, whatever's changing with your house, you're going to be pleasantly surprised because it tells me that there is going to be like a labor of love and an outpouring with other people who are going to kind of help you. So definitely circle back and let me know what happens. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with me on Friday night. I hope you enjoy this really fun, spontaneous party, full moon in Aquarius tomorrow. I hope you guys have a good one. Before you leave, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way you can catch my other videos. Not only am I here every Friday doing readings, but I'm here Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. So make sure you check out my Sunday sermons, my August horoscopes, my August taroscopes, and all the other goodies in between. For more about me and my work, check out the links below. Head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. There you can see how to book a one-on-one reading with me. I'm now booking in October and November, and honestly, within a month or two, I'm going to be booked out to the new year. So if you know that you have a birthday coming up at the end of the year, you want a reading, check it out. I also teach astrology. So if you'd like to learn astrology with me, well, subscribe, watch my videos, but also check out my beginner's astrology course, my Astro 101, or my intermediate course, Astro 201, if you want to learn how to interpret transits and make predictions in your very own 12-month horoscope. With that being said, enjoy the weekend. I will catch you guys all back here on Sunday to talk all things Venus-Jupiter conjunction, and I hope it's a good one for you guys. I'll catch you here very soon. Take care.